Hello? Hello. Everybody, happy Monday. If you're joining us from this morning, you're very welcome back. If you're joining us for the first time, so how are you? Hope you're keeping well. Tonight, back to our ATC lessons, and tonight, friends, we're going to be covering oceanic procedures. How do we get our oceanic clearance, and how do we fly across the pond? It's kind of the almost the very last thing when it comes to our entire ATC course. This is something that we left purposely, because there's a bit to it, left it to kind of late in the day, but as our VATSIM class, or VATSIM flights, as it were, VATSIM class, our VATSIM flights, we're about to complete the European series and heading over to the United States. We have a reposition flight happening this very Sunday. We're going to be flying from Dublin over to Detroit. Now, the whole idea of this is we've started off with VF4, then we went IF4, right? And that was all focused flying within Ireland, a lot of it within Europe. Then we brought out the FAA conversion course, teaching us some of the differences between flying in Europe under ICAO and rambled over to the FAA. When it comes to cross the pond, we're actually dealing with both areas, both systems, so it's very exciting. I mean, a lot of it, yes, you're flying over, the great blue sea, but there's quite a bit for us to be doing. We're going to be talking with European ICAO controllers, and then when we fly over stateside, well, then we're going to be dealing with the FAA, bit of Canadian ATC thrown in along the way. So there's a couple of things we just want to be okay with before we go, and that's the purpose of tonight's very lesson. There are 6 stages breaking down tonight's course, what we're going to be covering, and we'll do a small bit of prep. Any questions you guys might have, do let me know in the chat. We'll try and answer them. And the man, myth and legend himself, Jeppesen 2001, will be joining us shortly. Jeppesen, in a previous life, actually did a lot of the ETOPS work, and that was scheduling aircraft flying across the ocean. So we'll start off with a couple of, when we say crossing the ocean, it doesn't necessarily have to be that. I mean, this is for long haul flights where ETOPS come into it. We have the Atlantic Ocean. Specifically, we have what's called the North Atlantic tracks. Then we have the oceanic side heading out towards the Pacific, which is actually a little bit more straightforward than you think. The North Atlantic, quite unique. Yes, it is a massive body of, massive body of water, of course, but it's all to do with the prevailing winds, you see. You go all the way back to the flight of the Bremen. We realised that in 1927, the Spirit of St. Louis flew from the west to the east. The winds were behind. Flying from the east to the west, considerably difficult, or more difficult, because they had to face the winds. So the winds play a huge part in all of this. You don't want to be flying your airplane against, 150 knots headwind if you can avoid it. Hence we have the North Atlantic tracks. Other reasons in there as well. Over land, we have loads of radar services. We can see different countries and their FIRs looking after us when it comes to radar. When we're out over the sea, there's not much. Therefore, a lot more importance is back on the pilot to say, oh, right, I now know what I need to do. The very basics of this is, before we head across the Atlantic, and we're just going to focus on the Atlantic tonight because that's where our flight is taking us, but the same rules apply if you're going over any ocean or even using any sort of ETOPS. But we need a special clearance to get us in there. So yes, we'll get our initial clearance, we'll get pushback, engine startup, taxi, takeoff, all the departure stuff, and then we have to look for our oceanic clearance. And there's a couple of rules that kind of dictate when do we call for it, who do we talk to, and all the jazz. We'll go through all that here tonight. So there's a bit to get through. A little bit, but we'll take our time with it. Right, it's me after all, right? So if you've any questions, do let us know in the chat, and if I know the answer, I'll tell you. If I don't, I'll find it and come back to you. That's how this will work. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, how was your day on this Monday, the start of another week? It's all happening now, lads. So I'm going to be flying in FlightSim 2020 this coming Sunday, or at least that's the plan, and I'm planning to take PMDG's 777-3. That's what I'm going to try to do, but that could all change, right? I'm going to plan it that I'm taking the 777. So let's see what happens, right? But anyway, who's here? Look, Irish Jet Red, good to see you, buddy. Naughty Gnome is here. JW, welcome aboard. Vacuum is in the house. Filthy, good to see you. Hank is here. Tarnish, welcome back. Retriever Neil, good to see you. Lead Ballooner, happy Monday. APU Inspector rambles in. Fierce Wolf, looking terribly fierce and terribly wolfy, has resubscribed for 47 months. Thank you very, very much indeed, man. Spitfire RAF, welcome back. My dude. Sir Camsalot, welcome in. Gibbo is in the chat. How are you, Gibbo? I need to talk to you about the F1 movie. He wasn't terribly impressed. Mac Vision, welcome aboard. Lucky Bo is here. Who else come in the door? Strap, Ola, Shuffle Shoes, Shuffles in. AJH, hope all is well. Sarah Doman is in the house. Malky, welcome back. CP65 is here. Victorious, good to see you. Max Stallion, how are you, man? Stu Snape rambles in. The Impossible Face, Guten Abend, hope you're well. Hermit Something says, good afternoon from Boston. Good evening from Tipperary, you're looking well. Schultz is here. Super Typhon, welcome aboard. PH Roy, good evening. Who else come in the door? Martino Kite, thank you indeed for the follow. Piku is here. Martin K. Piku, did you get the thing yet? Martin K, good to see you, buddy. He says, looking forward to this one. The flight on Sunday will be your first oceanic crossing. Yes. Nice one. Dougal McTavish, the chairman, is in the house. Good to see you, Dougal. Care85, welcome in. AZ Blue Line, welcome aboard. Velo is here. Creo, good to see you. Wicked Lumberjacks, happy Monday. 98 Vulcan is here. Cy Murray, welcome back. Madude. Frankie's in the house. How many times a day are you streaming? Sometimes twice a day. Sometimes none a day. It depends on the day, really. So a 777 on your CTP. I'm thinking of it. V Pilot, hello again. A Crotty is here. PS Mirandai, hello there. Again. Good to see you. The Impossible Phase currently flying through Santa Maria Oceanic. Nice. Genoa Ponte Delgada. Ooh. At least you don't have car troubles, because we do. Oh no, what happened? Josh, good to see you, Josh. Iceman is here. Sun Jammer, welcome aboard. Phil, good evening, hope you're well. Idle Cutoff is here. Cambridge calling, hello from Tipperary, hope you're well. Cyrus T is in the house, hope you're well. B Carlo, welcome in. Creo's like, Jesus, we're flying it tonight. No, we're not. We're learning about the flyage. We'll see how we get on. Toto, good evening. Still waiting. Okay, we'll find out. Mr. Flight Simulator is here. The Slick One is in the house. One day you should fly the Felis. I will fly that someday, indeed. Crafty Tigers, good to see you. Gar Gaming, welcome back from Galway. Hope you're well, my dude. On over here now, quick to YouTube, we say hello. Who's here, look? Northland Air, welcome in, my dude, hope you're well. Paul Pinsker is here, welcome in. Mrs. TPHI, welcome back. Gav Spears, hope you're well. William is in the chat as well, good to see you, William. Uniform Goose, g'day Goose, you're very welcome back. Virtual Flight Diaries, hello, hello. Hello from Philadelphia, hello from Tipperary, hope you're well, man. Dave Cleary, legend Dave. Welcome back, Dave. Vruden the Great, is he finally going to teach me something instead of just rotting me brain? I shall rot the brain. Indeed. Hope you're well. Who else come in the door now? David Bartley, good to see you. Would like to welcome the Fireflies to Charlie Zulu Victor Romeo. Is that Vancouver? 5-second intro, Dave, 100%. Who's this now? Meerkat, good to see you, man. Visualize is here. Very happy Monday. Hope you're well. It's going to be busy. And there's quite a good bit to cover, but we'll take our time, we'll break down what we're trying to learn, and we've a load of visual references to help us out, right? So that's what we're going to do and get started. So if I press that button, right, I'm as happy as you are. Come on over here, look. So I'm loaded into the sim. And this is Flight Sim 2020, but we're not really using the sim as much for a while, right? This is very much going to be looking at the procedures that we need to follow and figuring out what exactly is oceanic clearance and the procedures. Why do we need to know them? See, it all becomes very, very important. How are we looking at here now? Right, so we're sat here. Are we getting... I have lots of work to do when it comes to Sundays Across the Pond, lads. But anyway, we'll sit in here and we'll bring some information up on the screen. Is that the easiest way to do it?
Hello there.
With a bit of background noise as well. Sloppy, you're very welcome in. Steve Claxton, you're welcome in. A Crowdy says, Kerry Condon is in the F1 movie from Tipperary. She was also the voice of the Friday AI in the MCU. Wait, what? Really? Jeppison is here. We'll jump over to you soon, Jep. To be fair, MCave's Dublin is not great in performance. Yeah, but... Tis a little bit kind of heavy and the weather has taken a turn, but it's grand, right? It's grand. So we're going to start off. We have updated. Where's this now? So we've updated the ground school document, right? And if there's any things that need to be updated or changed, let me know, right? Out here in the suburbs, good evening. So if you ramble over to tutomurphy.com/current lesson. Right, here you'll see our ground school document, and we're just going to start off here and figure out what we're talking about, right? That's the idea, right? So if you go on down, well, there's a couple of things we need to do first, right? We'll go to the very start of the machine here. Now, if you've never flown with this before, if you've never used the ATC element of what we've done. All the courses are there, all the lessons are there, there's YouTube videos and all to back it up, so that all lives there, right? So that's what you guys can see over on the website. It's the very same one I have, right? They're identical, all right? Except I just have it in a little PDF here because it's easier for me to follow along, you see. So this is the gadget over here. So if we start off, when we work down through all the contents, all the table contents, well, you'll see that we actually come across oceanic flights a little bit early on, right? So we have some stuff here. Flight plans are there. SELCAL, we're going to hear a little bit more about that later on. Uncontrolled airports. Then we have IFR stuff, right? IFR phraseology, all right? So we have how the VATSIM system works, right? Uncontrolled airports. It happens quite a bit on VATSIM, not much we can do, but there's something here I'm looking for because it's to do with our oceanic clearances, because we kind of touch on it. So we'll go at the very beginning, right? Where is this now? Airspace. Where is this now? Putting it all together, flying the circuit. No, that's all grand. We have it down here. Equipment, SELCAL, things to avoid. Where is it? Oceanic. Q codes, that's for your tracks and bearings and all this sort of stuff. ATC controller airspace, uncontrolled holding, missed approach, clearance, conditional clearances, oh, that's all grand. IFR, Europe, flying competence, airport etiquette, very important. The VATSIM top-down system. I wonder, do I have it over here on the webpage and not my book? Do you remember the way I said everything was there and now it's not? Thought I had it here, no? Jesus, we're off to a flying start. Hang on, we'll find it. IFR ATC. That's the phraseology. Wait now, lads. So we'll do this. Oceanic. Here we go. So we start off with some of this. It starts down here because we talk about the en route stuff. And we talk about speed and altitude. Then we see this lateral offset. So if you go down and start on page 133, we'll get to the new stuff first. But this was in the original ground school documents, and the reason why I want to cover it again because there is good information here. So oceanic operations, the section will feature in a future course. That's what we're doing tonight, with a focus on the advanced IFR ATC procedures. However, to give you a summary of what to expect, the process of obtaining an oceanic clearance involves three key elements, all right? Your route, your speed, and your flight level. Three things: your route, your speed, and your flight level. These ensure separation in terms of lateral, longitudinal, and vertical dimensions. Oceanic clearances are mandatory for flights within NAT-controlled airspace at or above 5,500 feet, and pilots are advised to inform ATC of the maximum acceptable flight level and speed when requesting clearance to aid pre-planning, right? Communications in oceanic airspace require adherence to standard procedures due to the use of high-frequency radio and high volume of traffic. Now, my understanding is VATSIM simulates the whole shebang within one, right? You'll see all the proper frequencies you can dial in, but we'll look at the high-frequency settings as well. You may have never used it before. It could be brand new to you. Requests for oceanic clearances should be made at least 30 minutes prior to the entry point, right? There's different rules from different areas. Pilots must monitor and update ATC with revised estimates if significant changes occur. The rule tends to be 3 minutes, but we'll get into all of that. Failure to receive clearance before reaching the boundary requires contacting domestic ATC for guidance, all right? Position reports, they're crucial for ATC to be able to track your aircraft within the oceanic airspace, and pilots must provide reports at each waypoint, including the entry and exit points. Now, some aircraft do this automatically. Some controllers won't look for it, but if you're asked the question, we need to know what to do. All right? So, where's this now? Josh says, VATSIM uses HF under a VHF alias. Yeah, not every aircraft sim supports high frequency. Yeah, okay, yeah. So we'll have a look at it. We'll probably have both options, but we'll definitely check it out, right? The reporting format resembles an interaction with ATC, ensuring accuracy and correction of readbacks, and upon reaching an exit point, a final position report is made before transitioning to the respective domestic controller's jurisdiction. Exit from oceanic airspace is self-initiated and pilots must inform ATC before they switch frequencies. Upon contact with domestic ATC, standard en route communication procedures apply, and this structured approach ensures efficient and safe operations. Now, you might be saying, what do you mean by domestic? We're going to have a look at some charts here, and it just gives you an idea of what we're going to be doing, right? Now, the other stuff we'll look at, come down the road, that's to do with our lateral offsets, page 133, right? Come down the road. Down the road. Right. Now we move on to here. So on page 288, there's quite a lot here, but don't worry about it, right? This whole manual, it's there to lean on when you need it, not necessarily, when you know what I mean. I don't expect everyone to read the entire manual, but if you're stuck on any area, well, it comes in handy because you just browse the glossary or the contents and you'll see what the story is, right? So we were saying page 288, come down the road here. And there we go. So oceanic clearance and operations, right? Now, I don't know, can you see that? Is it better up here so we can read the whole thing together? That might be better, wouldn't it? And we'll move this across. Can we move that across? Reading with Murph. Bedtime stories with Murph. So oceanic clearances. We're going to break this down into 6 stages. Right, there are 6 stages to what we're going to learn tonight, and we're going to have a look at each one and figure out what they are. And as I said, Jepson is going to join us as well to give us some further insight into what it's all about, right? A lot of this information, some of it will go over your head. Don't worry about it, right? There are some certain things we need to make sure that we're comfortable with, right? And the rest of it, you can kind of wing it. So don't be like, it's not as bad as it sounds, right? Or as it looks. But anyway, stage 1, what we're going to do, we're going to talk about the big picture. What is oceanic flying and why is it different to what we're used to? We're going to learn the oceanic airspace basics, why oceanic procedures exist to do with separation and safety, radar versus non-radar environments, controlled airspace structures, so the structure being the North Atlantic tracks versus domestic, and then you have your entry and exit points, all right? Introduction to cross-the-pond event relevance. Why this is important, because we want to learn this to fly across the pond, right? And funny enough, right, there's actually more required from the pilot at the domestic level than there really is during the oceanic level. But we just need to know the crack before we ramble up across the sea, right? Stage 2, flight planning. How we're going to do our flight planning, our routing options, nat tracks versus random routes. We're going to show you the difference between both. Flight levels, the Mach numbers, and also the RVSM rules. Anyone know what that is, RVSM? How to file a correct oceanic flight plan. We'll be using SimBrief, VATSIM, right? And how to access and read the NAT track system. We're going to have a look at all of that. Stage 3, oceanic clearances. What is it and how do we get it? So what an oceanic clearance contains, i.e. the route, the speed, and your flight level. When and how to request your clearance, your timing, your phraseology. What do you say? What are they going to say? And how do we kind of read it back? How oceanic clearance is confirmed, i.e. the NAT track and VATSIM procedures, and what do we do if clearance is delayed or not received? That can happen, right? Stage 4 is going to be looking at our communications and position reporting. SELCAL explained, real world versus what we do in VATSIM. Zybok, thank you very much indeed. 35 months. What a legend. Thank you very much, sir. We're going to look at the high frequencies and also CPDLC use on VATSIM. A lot of aircraft have CPDLC already built into them, and we have a website to use as well. Position reporting format, when is it required and how do we do it? How position reporting differs on VATSIM versus the real world. That's a nice to know, right? Stage 5, flying the segment. So you're now flying the oceanic segment. Reduce vertical separation minima. Man, Dave. Strict compliance with the route, speed, and altitude. And that is the most important thing. We have to be strict when it comes to our compliance with the route, the speed, and our altitude. That's very important, right? SLOP. What? Strategic lateral offset procedures. Now, we've already mentioned lateral offsets earlier on, right? We'll learn a little bit about those. What to expect during the cruise phase, right? And monitoring estimate changes and keeping ATC informed. So let's say, for example, without reading into the manuals, a genuine question. Let's say we've planned our route. We're going to be entering all these latitude and longitude numbers after our entry point. We're at our assigned altitude and we want to fly this route. What potentially might upset that. Outside of what ATC have done, I mean, they've planned the timing between us and other aircraft. They've planned the altitude, i.e. the separation between us and other aircraft. What might happen along our route that may cause danger to us, the pilots? Malky, yes. Anyone else? The weather. It was all about the weather. What do we do if we suddenly start flying along our route and out in CTDs is another one, right? It's the weather. Winds, not so much, because we'll have a good idea of the wind, right? But storms, cygnets, heavy turbulence, right? Cyclones, all the sort of jazz. The weather is what we need to be very aware of. Now, we're in flight sim. We can change the weather if we wish. It's not going to be a big deal. No one's going to know about it. Once we keep the barrow set, we're all right. But this is what adds to the realism. And as pilots, we need to know, well, geez, there's a lot of weather here. Yeah, it'll be great crack if people are getting bounced around, but that's what you plan for, right? The last part of this then is going to be how we exit the oceanic airspace, how and when to make your final position report, transitioning back to domestic airspace and contacting domestic ATC, the phraseology that we need, and how our normal radar services resume. Practical reminders for descent and then arrival. So that's what we're covering tonight. There are 6 stages for that. And as I said, Jeff will be on here now in a couple of moments to explain more in relation to ETOPS, right? To move us on from the beginning, we'll start off with what is oceanic flying, right? This is nice to know. Oceanic airspace refers to the vast regions over oceans, some land, but that'd be different, over oceans where standard radar coverage is limited or non-existent, right? These areas require specialized procedures to maintain aircraft separation. Examples include the North Atlantic, i.e. the NAT track, right? Jesus! Buttons are being pressed at an alarming rate of knots. I don't know why he just comes in himself. Thank you very much indeed for the support, lads. So the North Atlantic, Pacific crossings if we're going from the US to Asia or Australia, right? And then parts of the Caribbean or other oceanic regions. All right. On VATSIM, the areas are simulated to reflect real-world procedures, especially during the high-profile events like the biannual Cross the Pond, right? Brilliant. Now, why oceanic operations are different? Well, we break it down. You have land-based or domestic IFR, right? That's our domestic flights that we're well experienced with these now, versus the oceanic, right? So radar coverage is pretty much everywhere we fly when we're dealing with domestic FIRs, you know, Shannon control or approaches or whatever, right? On the oceanic side, there's little or no radar coverage, right? When we're flying over domestic, we have frequent radio contact with ATC, contact center, contact this guy, contact that guy. We're constantly talking to all the different ATC regions. Compare that to the oceanic, there's long stretches with minimal ATC contact. There is no one to talk to. You might be just talking to the one controller for 3 hours or whatever, right? Vectors issued for separation. So when it comes to separation, ATC are trying to move us and other aircraft away from a conflict or potential conflict. We'll hear that when we fly domestically. You know, Firefly 235, turn left heading 080. Turn left 080, right? You don't get that in the oceanic stuff. Very rarely. That's why you must have strict adherence to your planned route and speed and altitude. Altitude and speed changes are common when we're domestic. You often hear it: descend now, flight level 230, climb now, flight level 180. You hear that quite a lot. Or reduce speed to 180 knot until 60 ME. You hear all that domestically. When we're over the ocean, altitude, speed and routes, they have to be precise. Now, there's a lot of stuff in the aircraft that'll help us out. And there's stuff on Navigraph that helps us out. There's a lot of options along the way that makes this job a little bit easier. ATC actively monitor the aircraft. That's when you're domestic, because you have your squawk and they can just see you and they know what's happening. Over the ocean, you still have a squawk, although it changes. We'll get into that later. ATC rely on your position reports, CPDLC or ADSB. All right. Now, on VATSIM, they're going to see you because technically when you squawk, Charlie, you're ADSB out, right? Who be this now? Who's this now? Jesus, how do we pronounce your name? Forby, good to see you, buddy. Or it's actually Jesus. Good to see you, man. Crap at reading. But anyway, The core challenge: without radar, ATC cannot see your aircraft in real time. Instead, separation relies entirely on your filed and assigned route, your assigned MAC number, right? Your assigned flight level, accurate position reporting, and then strict adherence to instructions. If one aircraft deviates from any of these, the separation chain is broken with serious safety risks. Not to worry too much on VATSIM, there is no safety, but you will get controllers given out, right? It's in Danish. Very good. What does it mean? So who controls the oceanic airspace? Who's up there? We all heard of Shannon Control, London Control. We've all heard of this. Well, who looks after it? Well, there's different regions that have their own authorities. For across the pond, for example, the key agencies include the Oceanic. The Western Atlantic is called Gander Oceanic. So they're the lads controlling the western side of the Atlantic. All right. The Central Atlantic tends to be that of Shanwick, which is between the UK and Ireland. The Eastern Atlantic, Santa Maria, if it's down south in Portugal. And on the Pacific side, you have Oakland, Anchorage, and so on. Our main one is going to be Gander and Shanwick. They're the two regions or authorities we're going to be speaking to during the oceanic part of our flight. We'll start off with Shanwick because they're UK and Ireland. We're heading west. We'll eventually cross the meridian line of whatever it is, West 30 I think it is. Then we'll start talking to Gander. All right. On VATSIM, the regions are often staffed by controllers specifically trained for oceanic operations. Now, we may or may not get ATC coverage on our flight. We still want to know what to do, and if they are online, they're not going to scare the crap out of us. Know what I mean? VATSIM does simulate NAT tracks and random routings. They do look after the oceanic clearances. They do SELCAL, position reporting, not everywhere, but it can happen, right? And non-radar separation. While CPDLC and high-frequency radio are often simplified or simulated via text or voice, the procedural structure is real. It's quite the same. And it is followed during events such as cross the pond. So, why does it matter? Hundreds of aircraft crossing within structured time slots, mandatory oceanic clearances, and a high reliance on pilot accuracy and procedural knowledge. That's how it works, right? If you don't follow the proper procedures, you delay yourself and others, you risk separation loss, and you disrupt the event for controllers and pilots. This can happen quite a lot, and sometimes people get the dot wallop. Understanding the big picture is the first step. So once we kind of understand, right, okay, there is a to-do here, right, we're already on our way. Good stuff. Stage 2 is going to be flight planning, and this is where we're going to jump over to Jeppesen. Before we do, I want to look at another couple of websites, because, friends, if we were to look at Navigraph or even SimBrief, right, so Navigraph, I've turned on stuff here. This is a high IFR, right? And you can see that we have these FIRs. Now, the FIRs are the radar areas, or the authorities, if you like. So in Ireland, yes, we have Shannon Control, Echo India Sierra November, right? We get most of that. Then we have London Control, or you have Scottish Control. Those of us on this side of the pond, we're very aware of all these different top-level controllers. And by top level, they're at the very, very top of the food chain. And then they control everything all the way down to the ground, unless they have additional controllers to look after things like approach or departure, tower, ground, clearance. You get the idea. When we leave this when we leave this area, you can see now that we're entering a new authority. And this one here, Shanwick for Oceanic, Echo Golf Golf X-Ray, well, you can see the areas in which they cover. From Scottish and Shannon all the way out. But there's a line, because you can see where the line goes. It's to their west, and it's also to their south. To the south, you can see Shanwick is still here, and then you have Santa Maria. That's further south. That's the lads heading down to kind of, South America, or they're coming from South America down into Central Europe or Africa. All right. To our side here, we have Gander Oceanic, and this is where the Canadians come in. And you can see that they're looking after just south of Iceland, because we also have Reykjavik up here. They look after a lot. The Gander lads cover a massive area. Massive. And you can see then they're covering here and here. And then we start going back into the domestic stuff, right? Don't mind all these lines here, they'll upset you. But you get the idea, right? So that's how it kind of looks like on a map. Outside of this, you have tracks. and you have the North Atlantic tracks, which are predefined routes, preferred routes if you like, right? Or you can have random routing. And a lot of that comes back to the airlines, what they want to do. It depends on the weather, what they want to do, and so on and so forth. So if we have a look over here, for example, bring up SimBrief, right? Up there now, you devil it. Get up there now. How do we just get you into that tab? Doesn't matter. Right, if we were to look at SimBrief, and we put in a flight, right? But if we want to look at our map first, we have some options on SimBrief, which is free. We can show things like ETOPS, and we can show NATS, North Atlantic tracks, right? Now, these change quite a bit. Depends on the weather, depends on the wind. And when I mean they change, these are quite subtly. You might remember if you ever flew from Europe into the States, yeah, Jesus, we went up over Greenland, or yeah, I remember that, which we went mad south. It depends on what the wind is doing, all right? And to give you an example of what I mean, and this is where our weather forecasting is going to be very important here. If we were to look at wind speeds up near our cruising altitude, right?
Dreamy, sleepy, nighty, snoozy, snooze.
Thank you for that. You can see what's going on across the way here. So if we were to fly in a northerly direction, do you see all these headwinds we're now fighting? I mean, they're not too bad, but you go up higher again, they get friggin' nuts, right? You get the idea. It's actually very calm out over the Atlantic at the moment, isn't it? Usually it'll be blowing a gale, but that's live right now. So if we kind of move down the road a bit, what sort of a forecast can we get here? We can get Sunday. So let's look at Sunday. 1 o'clock. At very high altitude. So when we're planning our flight, right? Why did that move? When we're planning our flight, here's little old Ireland. We're going to be flying out of Dublin, which is just here, right? It doesn't make a lot of sense if we're going to head south across the way, because we're going to be battling headwinds of 80 to 100 knots. So come Sunday, looking at the forecast at least, more than likely we're going to take off and we're going to head north. So the gnats will move. They move. And we need to check that. That's all part of our planning. What gnats are active, when we're going to use them, and so on and so forth. So that's what Sunday is looking like, right? But we'll bring it back to today. So if it was today, well, we can't go north because we're going to get bashed out of it. So chances are, if we were to plan a flight now, it'll send us south. Okay? Now, different departure areas will lean into different gnats. For example, they're color-coded. You'll have some west to east. They're given the following numbers or letters. East to west, they're going to be given different colors and different letters as well. All right? That's what we mean by that. So looking at the gnats for right now, right? I can't see the gnats here, but looking at the weather right now, well, let's go in and have a look. So we can see right now, based on the current weather, right? We have blue and we have green. These used to be, I think, was red and, or used to be yellow and green, or yellow and blue, I think. But anyway, it's not important. See the way they start at A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then you have H all the way down here. Then you have S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z up there. Right? All right. So let's start planning a flight. We'll put in Firefly 235. We're going to be departing from Dublin, and we're going to be going to KDTW, which is Detroit. And let's just horse in an L Boeing 777-300 extended range. And let's see what NAT or what track is this going to give us, right? So we can see here on the route it's giving us. See where it has this NAT. That's the North Atlantic track, and the letter beside it is C. All right, North Atlantic track Charlie. And if we look at it, there's two very important things. So you can say, yes, I can see clearly this is on Charlie. It's a predefined route, okay? So when we take off from Dublin, we're heading south. And remember, looking at the weather, that makes total sense. We're going to come across this way because we're avoiding all that savage wind blowing in front of us. If you were flying from America over to Europe, well, you're going to be using the northern tracks or the west to east, and they're going to be above us up here. See where the letters are here? Because it makes sense. They want the tailwind to get them over. Less fuel, shorter flights. You get the idea, right? So this is going to plan us to go on the southern tracks, which is fine. There are two waypoints of savage importance. They're your entry point and your exit point. All right. So if we look at it, how we know where they are, You'll see them on the flight plan, which is just here. I'm going to pop that into the chat so you guys can see it, right? Now, looking at what I've just put in there, lads, can someone tell me the entry point? Give me the waypoint name. That's the entry point to the track Charlie or track C. And can you all see it? Because where you have NAT, that means NAT, North Atlantic Track, and then you have the C, which is the letter it wants us to use. All right? Adara. So Adara is our entry point. Therefore, when we talk about clearance, well, Levka isn't, or Lekva isn't. That's not the first one. That's a waypoint before it. But the last waypoint is Adara. Okay? Lekva, we would be super sensitive looking at that waypoint because we know after that, that's where we're going. But the last waypoint here is Adara. And how we know that? There's two ways we can see that. If you look at the text that I just put in the chat, you have Adara, then it says NAT C. That's a North Atlantic Track. After that, you have a waypoint called Relic. So if we can see Adara here,
hello there.
And if we move along the track, well, this is 5130 north, 02000 west. Well, that's not a waypoint, really, right? It's giving you a lat long, but they're not a waypoint we can just key in. So if we follow the track all the way down, here's Relic. So that's your entry point and your exit point. The rest of the stuff we have here in the middle, that is part of the route. And that route will go into our flight plan. All right? Other stuff we need to be aware of. We need clearance before we can leave Adara. We need to have clearance. The rules to getting your clearance for Oceanic is, which we'll go through, it's 30 minutes or 90 to 60 minutes technically. So in theory, we could request this from Dublin because it shouldn't take us 90 minutes to get out to here, but we'll have to time it, right? Some aircraft, if they're flying from Germany or flying from England, they usually give Shanwick a shout, usually over Dublin, no later than Mullingar. That's usually what they do, right? If you're flying in Germany, they tend to give them a shout in and around Dublin as well. Now, depending on your aircraft, you can put in custom waypoints on your main PFD, and you can see, I need to talk to these guys when I get to this location. You can tell the aircraft to remind you to do something, right? That's going to be aircraft specific. For us, we're going to remember the waypoints, all right? I'll go through the rules of exactly when you must talk to them, right? Shannon is a good idea. Shannon is going to be your airborne waypoint. Now, this will probably change come Sunday, because on Sunday, we've already moved the weather ahead. Chances are we're going to be positioned north. The tracks will change, and we'll just change our routing to the north. We want to avoid the headwind. All right? Right. So, let's say we got our clearance. Now we're flying along this track. And see the way we have this 5130N? It's hard to see it, but when I generate this flight, these latitude and longitude numbers are specifying the route in which we are going to go, we're going to take. Right, let's generate the flight right now because there's stuff on this we need to have a look at. Now, there's other stuff we need to figure this one out because we need to have ETOPS, right? Jep is probably saying, Murphy, will you just come on? We'll jump on to Jep now, but I have to show you this, right? Because we're going to move on to ETOPS next. Let's have a look. Our flight number is fine, call sign grand, arrival, departure and arrival. They're giving us an alternate, our aircraft, that's all grand, right? Hey, Clem is here, good to see you. Your flight plan summary is important. Your initial altitude is flight level 340, okay? Average winds are grand, that's all fine. Your nav log is there, ETOPS have been included, brilliant. Your load sheet, that's your block fuel, you can add more to that if you wish. It's the route we need. Now, if you look at the route I pop into the chat, it's a lot more detailed, lads, right? It's so incredibly more detailed. What are you seeing on that? Can you still find the entry point and the exit point looking at that route? Go down through it. Go down through it. So you should see Adara. Then it goes into banana territory. This 5130 north, 02000 west, and so on. Because it's looking at all the waypoints along the track for Charlie. Now, if we have to... if we're not taking the Charlie, it'll be Delta or it'll be Bravo. All right, it depends on what track we're going to be looking for, and we have to request it. There's a chance ATC will say, no, I'm going to give you Bravo instead. Huh? So we need to watch for that, right? They don't really do it, but if you have aircraft bunching up, that's why spacing is very important. Minimum distances like 10 miles, altitude separation, all that sort of jazz comes into it. So you don't want to be sniffing the back of the plane in front of you. 10 minutes distance. Chances are if you don't do that, they're going to horse you onto a different track, and then you have to start thinking very quickly. So we'll plan around that, right? Now, there's some other things we can see. So as we go from Adara, there's other information that you can see. M084. Anyone tell me what that means? We'll go paint. M084. What do they mean by that? M 0.84. That's your speed. So they're expecting you to be at that speed. Is your aircraft capable of that? You need to find that out before you go. The next bit in there, it has F350. Does anyone know what that means? Right? Adam Controls is here. Good to see Adam. What does F350 mean? And here, this is a great example because here we're going to see something that's quite unique when it comes to the North Atlantic tracks. F350 is your flight level. So if we've put in 34,000 feet, and remember, right, we're flying from the east to the west. West is even, east is odd. We're heading west. We filed for 340, but this guy is telling us to go to 350. Huh? But that's an odd number, and we're heading westbound. That can happen. That's quite okay, right? Now, we can do our homework and find out exactly what altitudes are available for us, because we can request what we want. There's rules to that as well, all right? So if you see something like that, or if ATC tell you to fly at flight level 350 in your clearance, it's okay, because in the North Atlantic tracks, it doesn't really matter if you're odd or even like it would be come to your domestic areas. So that bit of information that I've typed into the chat, right, that's letting you know that you have a step climb before you get to that waypoint. A step climb is like a step. You have to up you divil you. You put it in 340, you need to get up to 350, and your speed is going to be 0.84. All right? Don't worry too much about it. Just if you see it, yeah, it's okay. All right? Right. Let's continue. Don't save that. There's other bits and bobs in here. Now, it says here, Track C is not active. We're going to be crossing 30 West at 2230 Zulu, filed using individual track waypoints. So this is possibly giving us what's called a random routing. Random routing. However, we can go over and find out what NATs or what tracks are actually active, right? And there's a website here, the NOTAMs from the FAA, right? And this is where we're going to see some information. This changes daily. The following are active North Atlantic tracks issued by Shanwick and Gander. Any NOTAMs pertaining to these tracks, waypoint changes or procedures will be found by searching the ARTCC NOTAMs under Shanwick, Gander, Boston and New York. The last update was today at 1850 Zulu. All right, let's have a look down through it. So, NATs 1 to 3, A, B, C, here we go. So we can see it. Adara, the waypoints, and our exit point. You see that? That makes sense? So that's the very same route. 5130-20, 5030-30, 4830-40, 4630-50. That should be in the flight plan that I posted there a few moments ago, which it is. And then it's direct relic. Now see what altitudes we have. East levels nil, because when we're not flying east, we're going west. West levels, these are the altitudes that are available. Flight level 350, 360, 370, and 390. These are the altitudes, as in the maximum altitudes, we can request for this. All right? Are we happy enough so far? Lovely. Then you have the other ones, NATS tracks, flight levels 340 to 390 inclusive, the dates in which these... they're issued at 10:30 Zulu. They're active between 11:30 and 1900 Zulu. And they change again, right? So if we were to look at more, So we have, let me see, that's D, E, F, G, and so on, right? H, to go all the way up. Remarks. This is critical. The TMI number. Does anyone know what a TMI is? And it's not too much information. Do you ever hear of a TMI before? It's almost as if it's like the NOTAM number. Yeah? Track message indicator. That's the one. Chris Van Halen is here. Track message indicator, right? Givo, shag off. What's important here, lads? This website, and again, we'll be doing all of this on Sunday before we leave. I'll go through my full flight plan on Sunday, and we can all help each other out. We're not going to rush this, all right? But I just want to give you the information tonight so you have an idea of what to expect. Is that fair enough? This TMI is of critical importance because you must have that when you're getting your clearance, because this is your reference point, right? They're going to ask you the question, or if they don't see TMI 188, they're going to be wondering where are you getting your information? Where's your flight levels coming from? They know that if you're going by TMI 188, yeah, that's grand. That is the active track. All right? So that's the idea. Anyway, there's other stuff we can learn about. That is the most important. The TMI number, and then you're confirming that the track route is the correct one. Adara, and then you have your lat longs, and then it's out at Relic. Now, that's just based on today. It'll change, but at least now we know where to look for it, and that's the website there. So save that website. I popped it in. CP is not paying attention. We'll ask questions at the end. Now, what was the other thing? Oceanic clearances. We'll get onto that in a moment, and then you have your NAT tracks. Connect to VATSIM. We can do all that now in a moment. So what we're going to do, that's the first little part, we're going to be looking at ETOPS. Now, these little circles, see this stuff? ETOPS. Why are there circles along my route? Why is this important? Well, we're going to go through all this here now because, ladies and gentlemen, joining us live in our television studio audience, we have Jeppison. Very good evening, Jep. How are you, buddy?
Hey, good evening, Murph. Good evening, chat. How are you all doing?
So, Jeppison, you've done all of this in a previous life. When it came to ETOPS and planning, I mean, that's what you did, right? I mean, you were planning aircraft across the ocean.
Yeah, that's right. It's a good few years ago now. I think the last one was probably about 9 years ago, so I'm a little bit rusty on it. So, like you, I've been brushing up for the last 2 days. But yeah, it's quite complex, but it's also quite interesting at the same time. But you've done a fantastic job so far, I must say, of explaining it all there.
I'm totally ringing it as grand.
No, I done an excellent job. But yeah, just talking about the NAT tracks. You were mentioning about the winds, the weather, and how they change. But basically, the NAT tracks change every single day. And also just a bit of insight for you. I'm sure it still probably happens to this day, but quite a lot of the flag carriers like BA and American Airlines, they will get involved and have conference calls about where they would prefer the NAT tracks to be.
Okay.
And then based on all that information, that's where the NAT tracks come from. So, yeah.
Sweet. Okay, so with our NAT tracks, they're all grand, right? Because, yeah, we're looking at the wind and seeing what that's going to do. But when we get into ETOPS, there's a reason why we need this, because we are specifically flying a twin-engined aircraft. Now, does this apply if we have 4 engines?
No, 3 or 4 engines, it doesn't apply. It's just specifically for twin-engine aircraft. So currently, you'll see on your screen, you'll see the smaller radius circles there, a 60-minute rule. So generally, throughout Europe, North America, Africa, generally within 60 minutes, you can have your alternate airport. But if you zoom out a little bit and have a look at the Atlantic Ocean, you'll see there's no way that you're able to get across with just a 60-minute roll. This is why they have different rules for ETOPS depending on the airline and requirements of the airline. So usually it's 120 minutes plus. The old airline that I used to work for was 120 minutes, and then it got upgraded to 138. So, like a new airline would probably enter at 120 minutes, but some of the legacy carriers that have been flying around for years, they'll probably have ETOPS up to 180 minutes. Like your Emirates fly over the Antarctic and stuff. So yeah.
So basically what we have to plan for is if something goes wrong and we have to divert, we need to make sure somewhere along our route we're flying within a circle, right, depending on the range, that we can make it back to an airport of any description, provided we know where we can land there within a certain time limit. Otherwise, it puts ourselves at risk of having to ditch.
Yeah, that's right. So it's all based on single engine and 10,000 feet. So it's based on two scenarios. So you lose an engine and you also have a depressurization. So that's what it's based on, the two worst case scenarios. And you'd have to have enough fuel and enough time that engine to be able to make that alternate of the 120 minutes or 138 plus whichever you're working to. But there's other factors to take into consideration when planning ETOPS. The main consideration is obviously the weather at that ETOPS alternate. Like for example, at the moment you've got BIAR there in Iceland. I think that's probably one of the smaller airports. I don't think you'd be getting a 777 into there. And this is another reason why, like you've got to be looking at NOTAMs, etc. And it would be probably Keflavik would be the ideal there. But yeah, you've got to look at NOTAMs to make sure that there is no work in progress and the runways not closed. It's got a functioning ILS system, and that the weather is above ETOPS minima, because ETOPS minima is different to your destination and alternate minima. Basically, they basically double the minima, just to err on the side of caution. So yeah, that's all got to be taken into consideration for the flight.
So as us, when we plan our flight, yes, SimBrief does a great job, right? It does do a great job, but as we're saying, well, the likes of going to that airport, probably not the best. Bravo India Alpha Romeo. And the reason being is it's not a huge airport, and a 777 going in there, realistically, you might physically be able to land it, but it's not going to have the services. You may not be able to take off again. So it's up to us. We can tweak all of this, provided, the weather is good, right? And it falls within the range wing, or the range ring rather. And the important thing is we don't just choose one. We need to make sure that at all times when we're in the track, in the North Atlantic track, we're in range of one of our alternates, and they're depicted then by these rings. So we'd have to plan for multiple alternates along the way, right?
Yeah, so I mean, for example, if you go into the ETOPS planning section of SimBrief there and just change BIAR to EINN to Shannon, and then recalculate the flight, you should see that would work, and that would make more sense, because if the flight's departing from Dublin, if you had to turn back, you at that point, as soon as you've gone into the ETOPS segment of the flight, you would then have to potentially divert all the way to Iceland. Whereas obviously you wouldn't really want to do that.
Okay, so if I just put in, I'm in the ETOPS scenario, right? So we can put in our threshold time, as we say, 60 minutes, 75 minutes, all the way up to 180. And then we have our target scenario, right? And we can avoid certain airports if we wish. So if we put in our entry airport and then our exit.
So if you put in the target scenario, if you put 120 minutes.
Yeah. And just recalculate that, or will we put in an alternate in here?
If you calculate that, then it should come up with the alternates there, and then we can always change that afterwards. So if you press calculate.
Okay, so yeah, there we go. It's calculated, so it's giving us BA or BIAR. Yeah. Now we can change that.
So if we change alternate one there to EINN to Shannon,
yeah,
and then validate that just above. You should see that change. We'll get rid of BIAR.
Yeah.
And there we go. Yeah. So that works. And we can see that the range rings for the 138 minutes you've got there overlap quite nicely. So yeah, and you can see the ETOPS entry point and the ETOPS exit point.
And
so
the
entry point there.
And the target scenario that varies from aircraft and also airline. That'd be correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So generally, most airlines will be 138 plus. But like I say, for Firefly Air, I would imagine it'd be an entry level of 120 minutes, for example.
Yeah.
So if we just go to target scenario of 120 minutes and revalidate, it would still work.
Yeah.
But
it does.
But okay, let's say for example, Shannon. Say we're flying this in the wintertime, and Shannon weather is below minima for ETOPS. It's above minima for general, European flying, but it's below minima for ETOPS. So if we change that to your alternate one to EIDW, back to Dublin, and then revalidate, you'll see what might happen.
If I put alternate Dublin.
Yeah, if you put in alternate one at VIDW of Dublin, instead of Shannon.
I was reading Muse fans comment, what's the girl's name at the top right of the screen? That's my name, you bastard. I won't even call you that. That's Robin Murphy. That's my name, Muse. You hear you? Brilliant.
Right, here we can see that the result is that it's outside the range. You cannot use, you can use Dublin as an ETOPS alternate, but you cannot actually fly this sector with a 120-minute scenario currently with those two alternates. So then we could go to alternate 3. So if you put in alternate 3 of BIKF, Bravo India Kilo Foxtrot, to give you the third one, Bravo India Kilo Foxtrot.
Okay, so
and then revalidate. That gives us then the range ring for that. So yeah, you can see how critical it is depending on the target scenario of what you're allowed. If you're a 120 minutes operator, the chances are you're going to have more, I would say, issues, more problems to resolve, in terms of weather and getting, being able to get the flight to work. I mean, there's other factors to consider for real life operators, like you need a functioning APU. There's lots of things in MEL and CDL that you need to be working. If they're inoperative, it might be that the aircraft itself is not ETOPS capable. So yeah, there's quite a lot of factors to consider.
Yeah, like folks may have seen on some add-ons already, when you're sitting in the flight deck, it'll actually say ETOPS. Some of them have that. I know there's settings on the PMDG fleet. You can say if they have ETOPS. Clem is just asking Jefferson, you might know, threshold time versus target scenario. What do they mean by threshold time?
Oh, now you got me on that one.
That's okay.
I'll have to look that up. Yeah.
Hang on, but I'm just going to think on this side of me head for a minute. ETOPS.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I see now. So yeah, threshold time, the 60 minutes rule, and the target scenario is the 120-minute rule. So I don't know why they have the threshold time there, because it's usually always 60 minutes. I'm not sure why the threshold would be any higher than 60 minutes there. So
yeah, so it says threshold time. Sure, it says it refers to the maximum diversion time allowed from an adequate airport, i.e. an airport meeting specific criteria for landing and supporting an aircraft, whereas a target scenario in this context refers to the maximum diversion time from which the aircraft is certified. Okay, so I think the threshold time would be if you're any further, or you have to be within 60 minutes of an airport, right? And then your target scenario will allow you to transit, if you pass that, up to 120 minutes or up to 138. So, for example,
that's correct. Yeah. So, I'm not sure why though. I'm not 100% sure why the threshold time could be any greater than 60 minutes in that specific scenario. But yeah,
it says here a 60-minute threshold and a 180-minute target means that the aircraft can operate up to 60 minutes away from an adequate airport under normal circumstances, but it's certified for a 180-minute diversion in case of engine failure. Yeah,
and that target scenario would have to come under the rules of the weather window as well, because when you generate the flight plan, you'll see further on down in the flight plan there'll be a weather window. So that means that between those times, which it gives you on the flight plan, you have to make sure that the weather at those alternate airports is within ETOPS minima.
And like even now we can see that Reykjavik is below the alternate limits, as in weather.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and that's what's good about SimBrief, is that it brings all that in. It looks at the weather and looks at the NOTAMs and tells you that's the issue. So at this point, we're going to be starting to scramble around for other options, in able to get us to do the ETOPS, maybe Porto Legado or something like that. So yeah.
And again, so when we're looking at our routing, right, we can go by NATs, right? We can take a certain track, or indeed we can go what's called random, and that can kind of share a NAT if we like, or, you know, we could say to ourselves, well, I don't want to go down that south. I mean, I just want to go kind of straight across. We have that choice, of course, right, depending on the weather and how ATC are looking after us. But ETOPS doesn't change. You still must apply ETOPS regardless of what route you're taking across the Atlantic.
That's correct. Yeah, the only caveat to that is if you're doing what we call blue spruce routes, which were the old routes where it's a 60-minute rule, where you go fly over sort of towards Iceland and then use one of the airports in Greenland and the I think it's Iqaluit in northern Canada. There's certain scenarios where you can do that, but the weather has to be good enough at those destinations. And generally, especially if you're traveling, flying in the winter times, it can be quite troublesome. So yeah, they're the blue spruce routes, but
and they're still active today, because I mean, I know for the D-Day stuff over the last couple of years, all the C-47s coming in from Canada, for instance, they go that way. They go Greenland, they go Iceland, down into Prestwick, and then down the road. So their distances, I mean, they're always within a couple of hours of a massive land base rather than going straight across the ocean, right?
Yeah, it has to be, because if they're not ETOPS certified, then yeah, it would have to fly that way. So yeah, it's that obviously if sometimes we had to do that if we had an aircraft that was, say, coming back from the States and for one reason or another had a technical problem and it wasn't ETOPS capable, say if the APU was inoperative, couldn't be fixed, we would have to look at potentially going that way, which obviously is a lot longer and might result in a technical stop for fuel as well, depending on the winds on the day. So yeah.
And it's the very same reason when we do our Bremen flight. I mean, we follow what the Air Corps did back in 2003. They flew a King Air. That's not an ETOPS aircraft. So that's the route in which a King Air and a TBM went. So that's why they had to go Iceland, Greenland, and then down into Goose Bay and so on and so forth. Because, we've done across the pond westbound or eastbound before when we brought the 737 over, and we spoke about ETOPS and making sure that, okay, we're now flying in this area here. So once we're kind of still within kind of, the Shanwick area, that we know that, okay, we're gone beyond Shannon, but we might be able to make it back. At the point of no return, I mean, we're pretty okay just with Shannon there, because even if we get to this ETP1, that's the waypoint, knowing that the equal time point, well, we can either stay going or we have to turn back. That's kind of that's your line in the sand, if you like.
Yeah, that's right. So at that point, you have to decide whether you're going to go to the, return back to the original airport you took off from, or divert to the next, en route alternate, ETOPS alternate. So yeah.
So there's probably just one little area here, but again, our route doesn't go on it. It goes very close to it. There is technically one tiny little area of a route that's in between all of these, but it's not flagging it up as a major issue because, I mean, it's really nothing to talk about. Technically, it should be because it's outside of an ETOP or an ETOPS procedure, but yeah, it's still relatively grand. Plus, we can add more in. I mean, if we weren't happy with this, I don't know where Nook is, but like we could divert Nook maybe. And again, there's other options here, as you say, if you had to go down into the Portuguese side, or they're picking up, there's St. John's, and we've Gander International. Like, we've options here. As we're coming kind of into Canada, and then of course in the United States, but we can choose others along the way. I mean, yes, there's Iceland, but I'm sure there's an airport up here somewhere we could have a look at. Nook is probably just beyond reach as well. But if we didn't have, say, Dublin, or indeed if we extended our target scenario, where we just say if it was 138 minutes and we revalidate this, we'd get away with Shannon, and then St. John's probably.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there's another thing to consider as well with the NatTrax is that as across the pond will be, as it is in real life, it gets very congested, especially east to west in the mornings. That's when the bulk of the flights leave Europe to go over to the States.
Yeah.
It might be that for example, you're planned on currently on that track, Charlie. It might be that a lot of other airlines at the same time, meeting up at that point, the air traffic decide, well, actually, there's too many on Charlie. We're going to have to put you on to either Bravo or Delta. So when planning ETOPS, we have to advise air traffic as well and put it in the flight plan what the next best track is in the remarks.
Mm-hmm.
So we would plan, say in this scenario might be track delta.
Mm-hmm.
We would put that track delta as the next best option for us. So at least air traffic control are aware, SHOMIC are aware that that would be an option for us. So, and obviously the fuel planning behind that as well.
Yeah, and again, I mean, you're quite right. Any deviation that might come your way when it comes to following the NAT, we still need to ensure that we're within range of an alternate airport to make sure that we're complying with the ETOPS requirements.
Yeah, because if, for example, they put you on track golf, it was highly unlikely, but if they did, then yeah, you would fall outside of the ETOPS requirements. So you wouldn't be able to actually accept that, and you probably have to turn back and go back to Ireland. So yeah.
And it's possible ATC mightn't be aware of that if we don't tell them that. So it's up to the pilot planning to say, well, hang on, listen, I can't do golf. Can you give us alpha, for instance, or whatever? But we need to just, like, when we're planning this, you can never plan too much. You'll have an idea for each and every one that you're going to go for. Now, that's based on today's weather. Of course, the weather's going to be different come Sunday. Chances are we're going to get a track further on north. It's not going to really impact us here. If there was mad weather, we could be pushed further south, in which then you couldn't use somewhere like Iceland because you might be an awful lot further south down the track. It all depends what's on the day. But a very important point you've made as well was US traffic tends to leave in the evening time heading towards Europe. European traffic tends to leave kind of morning, early afternoon, heading to the States in the evening. So that's usually where you get the flow of traffic. And then, of course, we know when it comes to across the pond, so the world is mother, all goes to one direction, and they tend to use every available NAT that they can, and you'll always get the odd agent going the opposite way. Yeah. Okay. Anything else to add to that, Jep?
No, I think that's everything. It's covered, and SimBrief does a fantastic job, actually. Just been playing around there yesterday as well with these routines. It does a fantastic job. So yeah, I mean, and it's a free tool. It's amazing.
That's the great thing about it. Like, it's the fact that it's free. Now, there is this, this 30 West, this line, this most important line, that's the divide between Shanwick and Gandar. So when we're looking at our ETOPS planning, again, you want to be familiar that you're not just planning the airport. You need to get the NOTAMs, you need to get the METAR and the TAF, but you also need to make a note of the ATC frequencies, right? Because you don't want to be caught out completely. So if we say, that's grand, listen, we're going to have to divert here up to Keflavik. Sure, grand, sure, we'll just fly in and it'll be grand. There could be NOTAMs in there to say, well, certain runways are closed, or the weather is too bad, or like all this has to be thought of. It's not going to keep you up late at night, but you have to consider this when you're doing your flight planning, do you know?
Mr. Ladd asked the question. He said, "I take it the dotted line is the Great Circle line, but no, that's they're the NAT tracks."
These guys here, they're the NAT tracks, right? So we can take a route out of there as well. So if we look at the NATs, these are the North Atlantic tracks. So we're going to be on the southern ones, the greeny coloured ones. So all the circles for your ETOPS, they're just range rings or range rings English, and they just show you then the distance within a certain radial or radius around a said airport. Gibbo asks, is there any in real life data as to how often ETOPS have saved the day? It's a good question. I don't know. Like, you often hear, like, as in your aircraft crossing the Atlantic that suddenly had to divert. It does happen. I mean, they're there for a reason, but like, I wouldn't think they'd say specifically because of ETOPS. You might hear something like, United flight, blah, 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 had to divert to Iceland or had to divert to Shannon, or, you know what I mean? You might hear that, but I haven't heard of anything for that. Where's this now? Not those dashed lines. There was a lone dotted line before those. It depends on the range, look. So if we put in 120 minutes again, I think that's what you're saying. Or if we didn't put in BIKF, let's validate. No, we won't do that. Alternate one, let's put in Shannon and then put in BIKF. If you have dotted lines, so Jeff, on the circles here, right, if you had dotted lines, are they like I'll just scroll in with the mouse. Oh, I think you meant the circles were dotted. Maybe not. Maybe not. That was a great circle route. Aha. Okay. Click route. That? Ah, okay. Maybe it was that.
Oh, okay. Yes, that is a great circle. Yeah, that blue dotted. The round dots is the direct route. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Right. If you have to switch in between a track in mid-flight, how do you go about it? Say C to A. Chances of you having to do that are very rare. The whole idea is once you have your plan, you stick to it. That's it. If you have to deviate, or if you're doing what's called a random route, ATC don't really like that if it's busy, because it's very hard to kind of control it. You know what I mean?
And random routes, you cannot go anywhere near the tracks. You cannot cross any tracks or join a track at any point for a random route if that actual that track is active. Like when you planned your flight, Murph, just a little while back at this time of day, you could fly Nat Track Charlie. It would be a random route, but you could fly the exact route of Nat Track Charlie because it wasn't active at that point. But yeah, if you're doing a random route at the time that these Nat Tracks are active, you cannot intersect them at any point. More so that once you're on a Nat Track, you cannot then deviate off that Nat Track.
Like, it gives us information here as well to say if the track is active or not. I think SimBrief will actually tell us this. So if we generate this flight, it'll actually tell us if the NAT is active. Plus, we can go up here and have a look at it, say what's active here. We can check on the Gander Center itself. But if we scroll down here, it's going to say track C is not active. So we're okay to use it because it's not active. If it was active, well, then we have to absolutely stick to it, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Sweet. Okay. Jeppesen, great stuff. You've made it very clear. So we need to plan for ETOPS, which is effectively alternate airports. If you get an engine out or depressurization, we need to be able to get to an airport within a certain time limit based on what our flight plan is going to be. So, yeah, pretty cool.
Excellent stuff.
Sweet. Right. Back at it. You don't have time for anything else. Back at it.
All right, guys. Have a good one. I'll speak to you soon.
Jeppesen, thank you very much indeed, buddy. Cheers, bud.
Good luck.
And that was Jeppesen 2001. Like, he did all of this as a career. Like, it's a fascinating insight. It's savage, absolutely savage. So anyway, we go back to, yes, this is the plan in which we were looking at, right? And I know you have a couple of more questions. We'll continue on with what information that we have here, all right? And hopefully this will explain a few more things, right? Where is my book in little things? So we'll come back to here and then come back into here. That was our flight planning. So why flight planning is different over the ocean. Domestic airspace, you can often file direct routes, rely on your radar vectors, expect flexible rerouting and all the jazz. In oceanic airspace, separation relies entirely on your filed and assigned your route, your flight level, and your Mach number. There is little room for improvisation. Your flight plan becomes the backbone of separation, hence the timings, right? So NAT tracks versus random routes. So your North Atlantic tracks are organised daily by Gander and Shanwick Oceanic Centres. They change twice daily, eastbound and westbound configurations. They provide efficient fuel-optimised corridors across the Atlantic, hence we're talking about the wind. And they're typically required for commercial jets flying between Europe and North America. We have some options on where we can find the tracks, right? This is all, you can click on these links. It'll show you where you can inspect what NATs are there. Random routes, you can use them when the NAT tracks don't suit your route or timing. Your flight operations are outside the standard NAT hours. That's why we have, NAT C isn't active, right? Or you're preferred for certain westbound crossings for non-standard flows. Don't worry about that, right? Still require proper separation and clearances. Even if you're doing a random route, you still need proper separation and clearances, all right? Lovely. Flight levels for oceanic flights. You saw that they gave us 350 instead of 340. Well, oceanic flights follow strict flight level allocation schemes, or FLAS, to ensure vertical separation. For NAT tracks, levels are assigned based on direction and track-specific rules. You typically fly at even or odd flight levels based on eastbound or westbound flow. However, it can change. Eastbound, typically 32, 34, 36. Westbound, 31, 33, 35. But it can change, right? Higher levels above flight level 400 often require specific aircraft capability, right? Mach number assignments. Over the ocean, your Mach number is part of your clearance. For a realistic Mach number for your aircraft type, so file a realistic one for your aircraft type. You're not going to go Mach 1, right? La Frita, it's good to see you. Typical for long-haul jets, Mach 078 to 084. That's kind of your 777, your A350, your A330, that neck of the woods. Once assigned, you must maintain that Mach number. So you got to stick to that speed. Small variations are permitted for performance and weather. So you can be 0.02 plus or minus. They're not going to scream at you. But you need to make sure you're accurate, all right? So when you're filing for your oceanic flight, we have to use an accurate NATTRACK routing or random route, right, depending on what we're doing. You include your Mach number and also a SELCAL code in the remarks. Example would be remarks, Nat Charlie, Mach 080 or 0.80, and then SELCAL. Now, you can go in, if you want to know what SELCAL codes are, selective calling, you can go into that. It's in the manual above. If equipped for CPDLC, note it in your equipment codes. SimBrief handles NATTRACK integration automatically. VATSIM NATTRACK system is used to request clearance after filing. I think this little link isn't working. Naughty Gnome was telling me that. I'll have an updated one for you. But effectively, if we go into... let's have a look. If we go into here, and I bring up our oceanic clearance, right? So we're saying, okay, oceanic clearance. This does not submit your clearance request. The tool provides you with an idea of what to say to the controller when requesting it via voice or text. So let's have a look at this. So we're going to be Firefly 235. Our flight level is going to be 350 and our speed is going to be 0.84. We got all that from our information over here. Yeah. Okay. What else do we need? Your routing. It's a NATTRACK and they're telling us it's going to be C. Your entry. Can anyone remember our entry, lads? What's our entry point? Adara. Correct and right. So Adara, the estimating or estimated at time, we'll put it in random at the moment, but your aircraft is going to tell you what time you're going to get there. You can work it out yourself, but your aircraft will do it. Let's say, for example, it's going to be, I don't know, 22:30. And TMI, can you remember the TMI number? That's why they want it. Yeah? So it was 188. We're going to generate this. Firefly 235, request clearance via track C, or Charlie. Estimating Adara at 22:30, all times are Zulu. Request flight level 350, Mach 0.84. And then on readback state that you have TMI 188. All right? Does that make sense so far? NATTRACK.VATSIM or yeah, I have that one as well. Thanks, I. Yeah, we have that one. So this little website here will help you say it. Now, you can do this by voice, you can do it by text, or indeed you can do it by your CDPLC. You can do it from in the aircraft. Depending on the aircraft, you have options. But it depends on the aircraft that you're going to work on. All right? Current tracks, what's active? It's not showing up. If there's any event tracks, Concorde got their own. We won't worry about Concorde at the moment unless you're flying it, right? So let me see. Come back into this guy here. Additional planning considerations, correct entry and exit points, your Mach number appropriate to your aircraft. Make sure you're not picking a speed that's nuts, right? NATTRACK validity. Is it valid? Is the track actually valid? In our case, Charlie tonight isn't, but we can still fly it. Alternate airports. That's your ETOPS. Alternate airports along your route. And remember, we're doing all this on Sunday morning, and Naughty Gnome is going to catch up during the week with this as well on Friday. So, you know, allow a bit of... Adequate fuel reserves. Diversion over the ocean require careful fuel planning. Holes, weather, you name it. So, our summary for flight planning, you file it accurately. Your route is how ATC keeps you separated. Your route, not theirs. So the idea of changing from C to B, it doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. Unless something's gone wrong terribly, plan as if you're going to stay on that track. All right? Use your NAT tracks or a random route based on operational need. For us, we're going to go with a NAT track. Include your MAC number and a SELCAL detail if you need it. Again, if you're wondering what SELCAL are, if you go to our contents page, we zoom out. I think I put in all the SELCAL numbers. I could be wrong. Let me see. Abbreviations, informations, SELCAL codes. They're all here. SELCAL is not required to be entered to connect to VATSIM, both X-Pilot and V-Pilot. What you need to enter is your call sign, for example, right? And what aircraft you're using. SELCAL is an older form of communication between pilots and ATC, mostly used for trans-oceanic flights or where high-frequency radio is the only form of connection. It comprised of 4 letters, in grouping of 2, where the first letter in a group must come before the second, alphabetically. For instance, Delta Foxtrot, Echo Hotel, is a valid SELCAL, but Echo Bravo Golf Foxtrot would not be valid. The purpose of a SELCAL is for pilots to be able to turn the radio volume completely down because there could be a lot of chatter and a lot of noise on a high frequency radio. And when ATC needs to reach them, they send a selective calling request, SELCAL. The request is comprised of 2 sounds, which is made of 2 distinct tones from the letters. SELCAL is still used and planned by pilots and ATC, but only as a backup solution. The primary way of communication is with CPDLC, and that's what we're going to be using. On the VATSIM network, you can get a ping from the software. We've all heard it, right? When ATC needs to contact you. But the reason behind it is the same. You can turn down the volume of your radio while flying trans-oceanic or similar routes. They'll ping you. You know, the boop, 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 or this one. Yeah? Are we happy enough? Right, continue. We're nearly there now, lads. Someone put on the kettle. Static noise is nuts on HF. Yeah, it is. Like, if you ever tuned in high frequency stuff, it's nuts, right? Now, where are we at? We're up here. Adequate fuel reserves, and then review your entire route. So, file accurately, include MAC numbers and SELCAL. Understand and apply FLAS rules for altitude. Can you remember what FLAS means? We only mentioned it up the road here. If you can remember. Come up here, Murph. Stage 1 is grand. Stage 2 is SELCAL unique for every aircraft. My understanding is yes. If someone wants to say no, but my understanding is yes. Where is this now? Typically current, that's okay. NATs, that's okay. Flight levels. Flight level allocation schemes, that's what they mean, FLAS. So if if you're filing for 340 and all of a sudden it's giving you 350, if the track is active, right, they're going to tell you what altitudes you can use. Have a look. So we're looking at C, yeah? Adara. Westbound levels. 350, 360, 370, and 390. So they're telling us there straight away. Now we could just say, well, look, we're at 340. Let's go up to 36. You don't have to keep it odd or even as you would anywhere else. It's different during the NATs. So what I'm saying is, if it comes in at flight level 350, go for it, right? Right. Moving on. Any questions so far, lads? Have I lost anyone yet? Hello? Moving on. Stage 3. Your oceanic clearance, what is it and how do we get it? Your oceanic clearance, mandatory for all flights entering controlled oceanic airspace at or above 5,500 feet, including that controlled airspace. It provides your assigned route, your assigned MAC number, and your assigned flight level. This clearance guarantees separation from other aircraft, lateral, longitudinal, and vertical in airspace without any radar coverage. Okay. You must request your clearance 30 minutes, at least 30 minutes before reaching the oceanic entry point. That changes from area to area, right? We're flying out of Dublin. Chances are, if they're online, we could request it prior to leaving the airport, but we'll see what it's like on Sunday. Hans says, it's not unique. There's around 10,000 combinations, but planes with the same code are usually purposely kept in different regions where they're not likely to cause a conflict. Sweet. There we go. Thanks for that, Hans. If delayed or unable to request early, you contact your domestic ATC en route for assistance. So let's say, for example, you're on with Shannon Control and, you know, yeah, I'm going over now to talk to Shanwick and there's an issue or they can't talk to you. You're heading towards your waypoint, but you haven't been given clearance. What do? You get back on the blower to Shannon Control and you tell them where you're at. I haven't got my clearance. What can I do? They'll tell you what to do. They might tell you clearance not needed, we've already passed it on, or they might say enter a hold, we'll give you a shout back. Know what I mean? If in doubt, shout. Failure to obtain clearance before the boundary, you're not allowed to enter that oceanic airspace. We need permission before we do it. Contact ATC, domestic ATC, for alternate instructions. And because we're on VATSIM, there's no one out to kill you. If you're unsure and you don't want to sound like an idiot, just drop the highest controller you can see in your area. It comes up on vPilot. Just ask the question. Hey, this is where I'm at. I'm a little bit stuck. What do I do? Don't worry about like getting it all wrong. Ask the question. They're there to help you. All right. Right. How do we request it? Well, we can go to these. We can go in the Gander Oceanic NAT track, enter your call sign, route details, estimated entry time. Right. Is this working? Because this wasn't working a minute ago. Hang on now. Open the website. Okay, so we need to find that. Wait, Naughty Gnome said there was another one. Doodle-doo-doo-doo-doo. And now, lads, hang on now. So, here's information here, look, from Naughty Gnome. You can use CPDLC if the controller is online, right? There are effectively 3 ways to get your clearance. VHF or high frequency radio. Simply calling up the controller, asking for clearance via voice if the controller is online, obviously. If they're not online, well, then we do something else. We've used this part. It generates what we need to say. We've already tried that. Put in your details based on what you enter. For example, request clearance via track C, yada yada. We can use the NAT track website for those not wanting to use voice or CPDLC, and if there is no ATC online. This system uses VATSIM online portal to request clearances. Here we go. So you have to be connected to vPilot in order to see this. So it says connect to VATSIM as a pilot to request it. So when I connect to vPilot, we do this briefly. I wonder will it detect it straight away. Let's open vPilot. Thanks, yeah, that's the site you sent me, buddy. So if we connect, so we are connected. Let's give this a little refresh. It might take a minute for them to see me, perhaps. It takes 30 seconds or so. Yeah, we'll just give it a few moments because I want to show you what it looks like. That'll come alive here now in a second, right? And that's, as I say, that's how we're going to get our clearance. And that's if you don't want to talk to ATC and you just do it directly from a website, which I'm sure a lot of you will do. So request clearance and receive your VATSIM Oceanic clearance here. Available for pilots in the Shanwick, Gandar, Reykjavik, Bodo Oceanic, and also then your Santa Maria, which is down in Portugal. Let's start. You should request Oceanic clearance 30 minutes prior to entry. At some airports, you must request it prior to departure. Requests will be rejected if your ETA has passed, if it's under 15 minutes from now, or over 90 minutes away. So we'll have this page open when we're blasting off out of Dublin. Call sign. That's your call sign. Your destination airport. Requested Oceanic flight levels. 350 is what it said. Maximum flight level, the highest level that we can accept in our aircraft. It's based on your aircraft, know what it can do. Request the MAC number. So in our case, it was 084. The route we were looking for was Charlie. Or you can request a random route. Oceanic entry. It's going to be that from Shanwick. Entry fix is a Dara. This fix will auto filed based on your selected track. What time are you going to be there at? As close as you possibly can. You're going to get this from your FMC based on your current airspeed and altitude heading that direction. That's why it's important to download the winds and all this stuff into your FMC. It's going to tell you, you will arrive at this waypoint at that time. That's what you put it in there. So let's put in 12, I don't know, let's put in 2230. Current TMI, we know it's 188. 188. And your free text, you can put in all sorts of information on your free text. You can put in, for example, TMI 188, but they're asking for it here. All right. Can you please define oceanic? You're crossing an ocean. The Atlantic Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, parts of the Caribbean. That's what they mean by this. Right? If I submit this, message history, controller messages none, automatic message. Message from Shanwick. Request has been received. Continue to monitor NatTrack until entering the OCA. Request acknowledged. Continue as planned. Monitor NatTrack for ATC amendments. Your oceanic clearance message is Firefly Air 235 Shanwick requesting clearance to Detroit via Adara at 22:30 hours. We want to use the NatTrack Charlie at flight level 350, speed Mach 084. Maximum altitude we can take is 360, and we're reading TMI of 188. And that's it. Continue as planned. Monitor NatTrack for any amendments. So we can look at our message received. Nothing here. So we just keep this. We're monitoring this. If there's any information, chances are, if there's no one online, we don't get anything back here. We won't hear or see anything, right? Because if there's no ATC online, so you're not asking anyone to enter their airspace, just like you would be at home. You monitor advisory 122.8. All right? Are we happy enough with that? Yes. Notify a new entry time if this comes in. Balls, I'm after getting late. It's not going to be 22:30. It's going to be 22:35. Remember, you have a 3-minute gap. Keep an eye on your message history page. So I've logged in a new time. You have 3 minutes. That's the law. 3 minutes before or 3 minutes after. Doesn't matter. But anything more than 3 minutes, you have to go off and get a new entry time. That's important. 3 minutes. Just remember 3 minutes. All right? Request clearance. We've already got our clearance. Or if you need to do a new one. And then you have a help section. They'll help you along. All right? Are we happy enough? I'm going to save this and pop that into the chat here as well. So this is only if we don't have ATC online that we can talk to. Correct. But even if ATC are online, you can still use this system and they'll send you back a message through this portal. You happy enough? Okay. Let's continue on. And a thanks to Naughty Gnome for that clarification also. Enter your call sign, route details, estimated entry time. We've done that. Submit it. Monitor for approval and clearance details. That's option 1. Murph asked Phil very nicely. I did. I asked the VAT USA lads as well. Option 2, direct radio voice contact. Contact the appropriate oceanic ATC on VATSIM. For example, it's going to be Shanwick, and we'll see that on vPilot. We'll see the center up on top, and that's who we talk to directly. Example phraseology: Shanwick Radio, Firefly 235, requesting oceanic clearance, estimating whatever the waypoint is at that time. Flight level is this, Mach 0.80. Are we happy enough? VATSIM will then respond with the assigned tracker random route confirmation, your flight level, and your Mach number. All right. Understanding your clearance. Your clearance will contain 3 things: your route, your Mach number, and your flight level. I've repeated myself about 6 times. These 3 are the most important things, right? Your NatTrack or random route. That could be NatTrack A or direct DOGAL or whatever it's going to be. Your Mach number to maintain longitudinal separation, so 0.84, 0.82, whatever. Your flight level 350, 360, doesn't matter. Cleared via NatTrack Alpha, maintain flight level 360, Mach 0.8 or 0.8. You must stick to that. You cannot deviate. I just forgot there now when I drifted off route. Doesn't happen. You stick to the route, you stick to the altitude, and you stick to your speed. The smallest amounts of deviations are allowed, but they're minuscule. Stick to the route. It's autopilot. Let the plane fly, right? Confirming and reading it back. You read back the clearance exactly as it's issued, just as we've done with all ATC instructions. Clarify immediately if something is unclear. don't, as we've always done, don't ramble on thinking everything's great. Monitor your timing to the entry point. And you need to tell ATC if your ETA, as in, okay, I should be there at 2200 hours. You're cleared to enter at 2200 hours. All of a sudden, for whatever reason, it's now saying 2206. Notify ATC if the ETA changes by 3 minutes or more. 3 minutes or more. What if we're going to get there at, 2202? That's okay. You don't need to give them a shout. You have 3 minutes, plus or minus. What happens if you don't get a clearance after you've done all this? Well, do not enter oceanic airspace without clearance. Unless, of course, there's no ATC. If there's no ATC, there's no ATC, right? Contact domestic ATC for alternate instructions. You may be instructed to hold, delay, reroute to avoid entering controlled oceanic airspace without authorization. So if for whatever reason there's no ATC online covering Shanwick, now you might get no one in Shanwick, but now you have someone in Gander. That can happen, right? But anyway, talk to the last ATC controller if you need clarification. Quick summary. Request your clearance 30 minutes before the boundary, as in before you get there. It's like zone entry, yeah? Use a NAT track or radio contact on VATSIM. Your clearance is your route, your speed, and your level. Those 3 things. Read back the clearance exactly as they give it to you. Do not enter that airspace without clearance, and update ATC if your estimated times change more than 3 minutes to the entry point. Any questions? So even as you enter a step climb in the FMS, do you have to clear that out? Do you have to clear that out? What do you mean, Roy? Stage 4. Communications and position reporting. So why these are different? Alright, in most domestic airspace, ATC has radar coverage. It's a reliable VHF radio contact. Over the ocean, this is not the case. Oceanic communications rely on high-frequency radio, as they do in the real world. They have selective calling. They have CPDLC, controller pilot data link communications, which is on your aircraft, or we can kind of use this VATSIM one we were looking at just here. Yeah? Routine position reporting. Epic Fool, good to see you. Gigliotti, good to see you. Welcome in, lads. On VATSIM, high frequency is simulated through voiced or text messages. SELCAL is triggered through pilot clients, and the CPDLC simulation depends on the controller and your aircraft. So when it comes to your SELCAL, you will hear the... If they need to talk to you, you'll hear that from your pilot client, V-pilot, X-pilot, all that kind of jazz, right? Are we happy enough with that so far, lads? Now, keep an eye on what you're doing, Murph. Right. Selective calling allows ATC to contact an aircraft without the crew constantly monitoring noisy, high-frequency radios. Right? Did you ever hear a high-frequency radio? Where is this now? Where is this now? If we listen to it. Do we have...
Welcome to my video.
Which now? This is what they mean by high frequency noise. Could you imagine listening to that for the entirety of your flight? You'd be saying to yourself, right, that's the end of that for a game of soldiers. I'm going now to watch Prison Break or something. Right? But that's what the sound is. So that's why you don't need to be listening to that. Geez. And depending on your aircraft, you can tune in high frequency in the sim. And you might hear that. It depends, right? Depends on the aircraft and what sort of modelling they've done, right? So, SELCAL is optional but recommended for realism. But again, they're going to do... You can enter your SELCAL code in the flight plan remarks if you wish. Pilot clients simulate the alert with a ping. Yeah. Even without high frequency simulation, the concept remains the same way. It's a way to mute your radios and still be reachable. It's like a pager. In the real world, high frequency provides long range communications over oceanic regions. Audio quality is poor, but the coverage is global. On VATSIM, it's often replaced by voice or text via the pilot clients, right? Some controllers simulate high frequency via frequency assignments. So and do you ever see like a high frequency channel? So you know the way like we're accustomed to like 118.6 or 122.8. High frequency could be 40112. Huh? How does that fit in my radio? It's mad, right? Voice range is unlimited on the network, so don't rely on real world HF limitations, right? Dreadnought, good to see you, buddy. Hope you're well. I'm raging I didn't spend more time with you, dude. And I was loving all the stuff with just the aircraft, man. The DCS, man. It looked incredible. And the tent as well. It was amazing. MacVision, there you go. 5616. Anyway. The data link communications. In the real world, CDPLC or CPDLC, it's a text-based ATC communication system. It reduces radio congestion and it allows for efficient message exchange. You've often heard this even at ground level, right? They may turn around and say clearance via PDC. It's the same sort of idea. They're going to give you your pre-departure clearance in the gadget over there on your client, yeah? On VATSIM, some controllers support simulated CPDLC. If equipped, you can also use Hoppy ACARs or compatible clients. However, voice or text chat remains the primary communication method unless specifically mentioned otherwise, right? Had a great time. Sadly, had to spend too much time working. Absolutely. We'll do the next one. Come to Europe, Dreadnought. FS weekend, man. Position reporting. We have to figure this one out. Position reporting provides ATC with situational awareness in the absence of radar. You are expected to report at the oceanic entry point, at each significant waypoint, typically along your cleared route, and the oceanic exit point, right? Standard position report, call sign, current position, the fix and the time, flight level, the next fix and ETA, and the subsequent fix. So it could be, for example, Firefly 23 Air or Firefly 235 overhead 5030 at 2230 Zulu, flight level 350. Next fix is 5040 in 2300 Zulu. You get the idea, right? Here's an example. Firefly 235, Precision Dogal, 1300 Zulu, flight level 360, Mach decimal 8, estimating exit at 1330 Zulu, Gomet next. But it depends on what your waypoints are. Your report must be read back by ATC, listening carefully and correct any errors. They might get something wrong. You say, no, I didn't say that. I'm here, right? Estimate revisions over 3 minutes must be communicated. The same crack again. If you're expecting, exit at 13:30 Zulu, and next thing your FMC in the plane is saying, hey, you're not going to get there now till 13:35, get on the blower. Hello? Listen, yeah, I won't be there now until I get to this time. Keep them up to date. In some regions, i.e. part of the North Atlantic, position reports not required due to simulated ADS-B and VATSIM, but always check. Position reports, they're done automatically in the A350. It's automatic. But we'll check. I'm unsure of that myself. We'll figure that one out on Sunday, right? Adam says, I can't remember, but I think CPDLC is a requirement if you're flying with the RVSM rules. Could be. Practical tips for VATSIM: always monitor the assigned frequency, even with SELCAL active. Respond to SELCAL pings promptly. So respond to them. Make position reports accurately and concisely. Check controller briefings for high frequency or CPDLC simulation details. Use text if radio congestion occurs, and prepare position reports ahead of time. So you're not sitting back and going for a snooze. Get your position reports in place. All right. Where are we at now? Summary. So we request our oceanic clearance, contact the oceanic controller at the boundary fix, provide required position reports unless you're exempt from them, respond to SELCAL alerts or controller contact, maintain your precise route, Mach and altitude. Must stick to these three. Your route, your Mach and your altitude. Route, speed, altitude. Stick to them. Right? Make your final exit point report. We'll be exiting at whatever waypoint, Rhino at 0200 Zulu, right? And then contact domestic ATC after you exit the oceanic airspace. So in our case, it could be, it's not Boston, it'd be somewhere else. It'd be Firefly 235, flight level 350. We can see it. All right. I wouldn't monitor on the crossing unless you want to go deaf. Yeah, don't worry about the high frequency stuff. Right, lads, we are nearly there. Stage 5, only 2 left. Flying the oceanic segment. We're now flying it, right? So we know what it is. We've planned it. We've figured out the equipment. We've learned all about the communications, right? And position reports. What do we do during it? The oceanic segment. Once you enter the oceanic airspace, flying becomes highly procedural, unlike domestic airspace. Because we have no radar coverage, we've no vectors for separation, there's minimal controller interaction, and absolute reliance on the strict adherence to your clearance, i.e. your route, your speed, and your flight level. Yeah? Your responsibility: fly the assigned route exactly as it was cleared, maintain the assigned Mach number with only minor variations. Can anyone remember what the variation was in speed? We covered it precisely 27 minutes ago. What was the variation of speed, not time? So if you find yourself going 0.0 something, are you okay? Yeah, 0.02, plus or minus. You can be, so if you're at 0.84, but suddenly you're like 0.38, you get the idea, right? 0.02. They allow for that deviation, plus or minus. If you find yourself going a little bit slow, power up. Or go back into your FMC, because VNAV is going to do all this for you anyway, right? Maintain the assigned flight level without deviation. That's important. Whatever about the speed, but the route and the flight level do not deviate. Keep it exact. Make position reports as required. Monitor your communication, so you listen to the voice, the text, and you're keeping your ears out for your SELCAL. Right? This route already now goes way further north than earlier. Yeah, it'll change, Dougal, but don't worry. On Sunday, we're planning to be wheels up or push back at 1200 Zulu. We'll try and start a little bit earlier, so we can all plan the route together. We'll all plan the route together, and if you have any questions or if anyone's unsure, we'll help each other out before we depart this flight. We'll make sure that everyone is on the same hymn sheet, and we'll time it in such a way our departures aren't all going to land together. Give yourselves a good bit of space, all right? Apply strategic lateral offset procedures, SLOP, for additional safety. We'll read up on that. Maintaining your route speed and altitude. I keep hammering this, but this is the most important thing of crossing the pond. It is the most important thing. And the reason being is, lads, if you deviate from any of these, you put yourself in a bit of a mess, but you make a total mess of everyone else flying that track. Total mess. You know what I mean? So, your route, don't deviate it. Oceanic navigation often uses waypoints defined by latitude and longitude. So, I'm overhead, 5030 north, 0607 west, whatever it is, right? Waypoint accuracy is critical. Double check your FMS or manual entry. Make sure your flight plan is matched by your FMC or FMS or MACD. Your Mach number is part of your clearance. Maintain your assigned Mach number with variations of plus or minus 0.02, generally acceptable. If you need to change your speed beyond that, ask. You request it, right? Maintain the assigned flight path level exactly. The assigned flight level exactly. RVSM rules apply. Ensure altimeters are set and verified. If turbulence or other factors require altitude changes, contact ATC for approval. Now, we can get into a whole pile of head-scratching moments, but what if I can't get ATC and I need to have a deviation? Let's not worry about that so far. Your strategic lateral offset procedure. What this does, it enhances safety by reducing the risk of collision from navigational errors or indeed wake turbulence. You may offset up to 2 nautical miles to your right of your cleared track, never to the left. And what I mean by your track is, if you're flying this way and your track is like this, right? And you're flying that direction. So here's your little airplane and you're flying that direction. Yeah? You all see this? Well, a lateral offset would mean never go left, ever. They don't allow you to go to the left. You don't go down this direction at all. You can, however, go to the right. And what they mean by a lateral offset, well, you'd make a very small course correction to do something like this. And then you get your ass back in gear and get back onto your route. It's called a lateral offset. Now, if we get our timings right, we shouldn't have to do this. But that's what they mean by a lateral offset. Don't go left. You can go right. And you can tell the airplane, depending on the aircraft, in the FMC or in the flight management system, they're going to tell you, hey, I need to do a lateral offset. Sure. For how long? Right? So have a look at your FMSs as well. You may offset up to 2 nautical miles to the right, never to the left. Offset selection is random. Example, half a mile, 1 mile, 2 miles, right? And ATC approval is not required to apply slop. Okay. On VATSIM, controllers may simulate slop. They'll tell you. Not all pilot clients or aircraft simulated accurately. Check your aircraft's FMS. You may verbally announce your offset if desired. Example, Firefly 235 is applying a 1 nautical mile right offset. You're just letting ATC know what you're doing. All right? Again, this is diving deep into it, lads. Don't worry about it too much. Your position monitoring. Even with position reports and simulated ADS-B, continuously monitor your position along your assigned route. Don't deviate. Confirm waypoint crossings and next fix estimates, what time you're going to be there at. Report your time estimate changes if greater than 3 minutes. Monitor the system accuracy, especially if manually entering your lat-long coordinates. We shouldn't have to manually enter those. We're going to copy them. They're going to be injected into the aircraft. Just double check that they're right. Weather awareness. We mentioned this at the very, very start. What happens if we're planning all of this and out of the blue, the weather changes? For example, turbulence, convective activity, storms, jet streams. If you need to deviate for weather, request permission from ATC before leaving your assigned route or your altitude. Phraseology, it'll sound something like this. Gander radio, Firefly 235 requesting weather deviation 10 miles left of track. ATC may approve or provide alternate instructions. So you're flying along, next thing you see in your weather radar, oh Jesus, this is going to knock poor old Bridie out of her seat. That's when you can do it. The chances of us having to do this, quite low. And the bonus is, well, there are so many of us flying it, the first aircraft, he's able to talk back to the rest of us and say, hey, lads, it's fierce dodgy up here. I recommend you deviate. Grand, we'll all be on the blower. Aye, boss, we need to keep out of this weather. Do you know what I mean? So don't let it worry you too much. Summary of flying the oceanic segment. The task. Enter the airspace only after receiving clearance. Maintain your route. Fly your clear track or random route exactly. Maintain your speed. Assigned Mach number plus or minus 0.02 speed. That's the maximum it allows. Maintain your altitude. Fly your assigned flight level strictly. Right? Apply slop if you need to, up to 2 nautical miles to the right. No ATC approval is needed. Never turn to the left. Monitor your position. Confirm your waypoint crossings. ETA changes. Handle weather. Request deviations if required. You may not have to. Stay communicative. Monitor the assigned frequency and respond promptly. Alright? We're all going to help each other out here, so it'll be grand. The last stage to all of this, and you're probably thinking, oh Jesus, we're getting there, right? Stage 6. We've now flown the NAT track. It's time to exit. And we need to transition back to domestic ATC. When approaching the end of your cleared oceanic segment, you'll transition back into domestic airspace where radar coverage resumes, routine ATC interaction returns, vectors, altitude changes, and direct routings become common again. Unlike entering the oceanic airspace, which requires clearance, the exit is self-initiated, but there are structured steps to follow. All right? Any questions so far, lads? Where's this now? Hans says, if you do an offset, remember to return to the center line before the exit waypoint. I've heard of a crew reaching the exit waypoint 25 miles offset. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, so if you go offset, Get your ass back in before your next waypoint. 100%. All right? So, yeah, lads, there's loads of content online. Emmanuel did a phenomenal video on this. It's more aimed at the real world stuff, but it's very interesting. EasyJet Pilot did one as well. There's loads of videos on this. This is just us figuring it out for ourselves, right? And Stu, 100%, this might seem scary. It really isn't. I'm emphasizing on 3 things that are vital to all of this shebang. There are 3 things that are vital. Everything else, yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll wing it. Plus, we're all going to be there together. It's us flying together, lads, and that's the difference. It's us. I'm just going to give out to you a shout. If you're stuck, we can jump on. Johnny, I want you to say the following, and you're going to be grand. That's how we help each other here. That's what we've done throughout all of these courses. So don't for a second think this is beyond your capability. It's not. It just isn't. If you get stuck, you have a brain fart, don't worry, we all get them. We'll help each other out. Right? Right. Right, so where are we at here? Vectors, altitude, that's all grand. Our final oceanic position report. At the oceanic exit point, we must make a final position report, even if not previously reporting at every waypoint, depending on the region, depending if you have ATC coverage, right? So we would do, for example, it could be Gandar or it could be Shanwick. Firefly 235, position Mallet at 1500 Zulu. Flight level 360, Mach decimal 8, estimating Gapley at 1525 Zulu, Gome up next. It's following the same sort of phraseology. So you're saying, who are you talking to? Who are you? Where are you? What time are you there at? What's your height? What's your speed? What time are you getting to your next waypoint? And what's the next waypoint? That's your exit report. This confirms to ATC they now have your position, they have your speed and altitude, and they have your next waypoint and your ETA. Controllers use this information to coordinate with the domestic sector that you're going to be handed to next. So when we're talking to Shanwick, he'll pass it on to Gander. Gander then says, right, we're going to pass it on then to Boston or whoever our next ATC station will be, depending on our route and whose FAR we're going to enter. That makes sense? After your final position report, expect instructions to switch to a domestic ATC frequency, example, Shannon Control or Boston Center. Resume your standard en route IFR procedures. That's your standard IFR, right? ATC will typically say Firefly 235, contact Boston Center on 127.9. Or they might say Firefly 235, radar contact, continue as filed. That'll come back from them. All right. Once with domestic, you're under normal radar surveillance. Expect possible altitude change, speed change, direct twos. Yeah, we're in St. John's area. Yeah. Chances are it'll be them, Radbarron. Yeah. And then we follow the standard phraseology and readbacks. And don't worry too much if you get the phraseology wrong. We're going to be telling each of the controllers what we're doing. It's a community flight. We're doing our best here. If someone gets it wrong because they haven't used the American spiel from our FAA course, don't give out. Be grand. We'll get over it. And if anyone is stuck during the flight, hey, I'm going to be hitting this waypoint in about 2 hours. What exactly do I need to say? Jump on. We can write up a full script. You're going to say this, exactly this. This is your call sign. You know what I mean? Things to be prepared for after your exit. Plan for descents. ATC may begin descending instructions earlier than you expected. They might change your route. You might receive shortcuts or directs to your destination. They might have to vector you, especially common near major airports or busy sectors. And you're going to get increased radio traffic. Expect a busier, more dynamic environment. All right? Practical example, full transition sequence. Approaching the oceanic exit. Provide your final position report to Oceanic ATC. Oceanic ATC will issue you a handoff to a domestic controller. Switch to that domestic frequency. Check in. Firefly 235, flight level 350. Domestic ATC resumes standard instructions and then continue the flight to your destination under the domestic ATC control, just as we've always done. Right? Dougal says, Murph, am I going to stream the entire flight? Yes, start to finish, including the planning. I'm going to be shagged, but that's what we're doing. We're going to stream the entirety of this. It's going to be 8, maybe 9 hours, but yeah, I will stream it. So if anyone is stuck, I'll be streaming it. I'll be leaning in on the lads. Lads, what do we do? Right? It'll be grand. We'll figure it all out together. Also, we have to plan contingencies if we get the dreaded crash to desktop. What do we do? So we'll figure all that out, right? Summary of exiting oceanic airspace. Final position report required at the exit point. ATC handoff, they'll put us over to a domestic controller. Standard procedure resumes, your radar contact, you get vectors, altitude changes, and even possible course changes. Stay vigilant. Traffic increases, expect dynamic ATC interaction. Things will get busy. Once we get to the States, at that time of the day, on a Sunday, the Americans are going to go flying. Murph will be there. Murph will be down there. Murph will sign him. Good man, PJ. Good man. Are we happy enough? All the information I've just covered, it's in our ground school document. Have a read over it during the week. Are we happy enough thus far, lads? Any questions? I have additional information here. We're going to run through it, right? Let's have a look. So what we're doing, we're going to be departing Dublin and arriving at Detroit, depending on our route. What we looked at there this evening, our entry point for the NAT-C, right? The North Atlantic Track C, our entry point is Adara. The track message identifier, or TMI, was 188. Our requested flight level was 350, and our MAC number was 0.84. Stage 1, or step 1, we must get our pre-oceanic planning, and then our clearance request. Before we get into the procedures, it's important to understand that once we cross into the oceanic airspace over the North Atlantic, radar coverage is virtually non-existent. That's why we do it. ATC relies heavily on our position reports, sticking to our planned routes, and procedural separation. On VATSIM, this is simulated to reflect the real-world operation, and this is why oceanic clearances are mandatory when controllers are online. Online, right? So, when do we request clearance? Any ideas, lads? Give me the time limit if you can remember, right? How do I get a SELCAL code? I'm not going to be smart, but you can absolutely Google it. Check it out. A signing matter which can alert an individual aircraft that a ground station wishes to communicate to. High frequency SELCAL codes entered in field 18 of the flight plan based on 12. Where is this now? It depends on the aircraft, right? I want a SELCAL. Hang on, I was looking at a website here earlier. Where is this now? Required before you push back from Shannon, but not Dublin. Yeah. Yeah, 100% Naughty Gnome. Yeah. So, very good point. Naughty Gnome is saying don't use the SELCAL code that comes with the aircraft livery, because everyone's going to have the same livery, right? So don't use that SELCAL code. Where is this now? One second, eh? I've done a few the flight plans. Will I be in the network section? Prior to connecting, leave. Probably leave it blank, could you? And the page isn't found. SELCAL. Right, lads, SELCALs. One of the disadvantages of high-frequency radio, as discussed, is the incessant white noise. Listening to the background static for a whole 6-hour flight would be distracting and difficult. So, selective calling was devised so that pilots could turn off their noisy radios, right? Many aircraft are assigned a 4-letter SELCAL code, enabling them to make use of the system. When a ground operator wishes to communicate with an aircraft, they enter the aircraft's SELCAL code into an encoder, which converts each letter into a designated audio tone. The converted tones are broadcast over radio frequency and are received and interpreted by a decoder on the aircraft's radio receiver. Can I choose? Not quite. The SELCAL system supports 16 characters from the Latin alphabet. SELCAL is simulated on VATSIM by all pilot clients. Simply enter your SELCAL code on it. On initial contact with ATC, you can request a SELCAL check so the controller knows that you are SELCAL capable. Yeah, don't leave it blank. The code ABCD is valid, but CDAB... Wait now. Characters watched in alphabetical order as 2 ordered pairs of characters. Each letter in any given code must be unique, so both AABC and ACCD are invalid. Alright. So they'll give you ABC, AB-CD or CD-AB is fine, but BA-CD and DC are not fine. Okay, let me go off and do a little bit of homework on that one, lads. I'm not entirely sure. I would have left them blank, to be honest. Serial codes and all my liveries were all totally made up. Or SELCAL were all made up. Yeah, no, there's no issue there, give up. The problem is if we're all using it, we have one. If you don't have one, ATC will assign you one for the crossing. I was thinking that. I tend to leave them blank. Yeah, so if there's a conflict, ATC will fix it. You will need to reconnect with it. It's fine. Yeah, grand. Okay. So, adelphi.com, is it? Search and discover, find aircraft types, airports, services, thousands of aircraft live tracking. So we want a SELCAL, isn't it? Good find, Roy. Here we go. Good man, Roy. So if I go AB, I can't go TM, can I? So I can't use the same letters, right? So if you were to do, someone's going to be smart doing this, but if I did Foxtrot Hotel, Romeo Sierra. I'm going to give you this website. Thanks, Roy, for sharing it. I think if you're stuck, lads, we can use it. All right. Save that into your gadgets of stuff and gadgets and see how we get on with it. All right. Good question, though. Good question. Right. Where's my little notes over here? Okay. So, the standard, when to request your clearance, standard guidance, request your clearance. What are we saying? How long do you have to do your clearance, lads? How many minutes? Shut says, Murph, the flight plan route has you switching flight level at track exit. Do you need to clear that with ATC? Once you're exiting the track, you can just drop. If you're unsure, just ask ATC. 30 minutes. 30 minutes, lads, yeah? So, set a time marker on your FMC. You can do that. I'll show you how to do that. If you're departing from an airport that's very close, like Shannon or Cork, you could request the clearance from the ground. Dublin, however, you're going to be airborne within the 90-minute window. So, Dublin, we can't request that on the ground. On VATSIM, Shanwick Oceanic is online and CPDLC is available. You can open the comm page of the aircraft, or we can go to the website that we've just used. We put in our call sign, the ATC facility, i.e. Shanwick, the entry point, our flight level, our ETA at the entry point, our MAC number, and if there's free text, but they don't even do free text, they actually put the TMI in there themselves, all right? Double check all entries and then we can hit send. If controllers are offline, you don't need to request clearance. However, practicing the FMC entry process, or indeed the website, I recommend it, right? Also check the VATSIM map for assigned oceanic procedures for the day, especially during cross the pond, if there is one. Receiving clearances and programming your FMC. Typical clearance example, let's say the clearance comes back via CPDLC. Firefly 235, clear to Detroit via Adara Nat Charlie and all the waypoints. Adara at 0120 Zulu, maintain flight level 350, Mach 0.84, end of message. It'll come up as that. Your lateral routing, first verify your ETA at Adara. You must reach that within how many minutes? What's the cutoff time? If we're saying we need to be there within a certain time limit, what happens if we're not, right? Old Soul, thank you very much indeed. Old Soul DJ, great name. So what's that cutoff time? If we're going to be more than X amount of minutes to the waypoint. So if we tell them, hey, I'm going to be there at 0120 and suddenly it's now 0125, you get on the blower and tell them our new time. Yeah, right. We can adjust the VNAV and route page progress. Do all that in your FMC. Check all your NAT waypoints on the legs page. So that's all your lat longs. We'll check all of those. So let's show you this. Here I am in our PMDG 777. So if I go to FMC, enter initial position. On up here, we'll go, DEERs are on. Nice. Turn those on. Pumps are all okay. Start the APU. Because what I want to do here, lads, right, is play around with some stuff. So if I can... How do we do this now? I can do this. Go to the comms page, right? And see here, we have like flight information. See this oceanic clearance request? The PMDG has this already pushed in. Your flight number, the ATC facility, your entry point, your flight level at said point, your ETA, your max speed, and then free text. That makes sense? So for us to do this, we can start horsing that in now. So our flight number is going to be that of Firefly Air 235. Entry point was going to be Adara. ATC facility is Shanwick, which is Echo Golf... What are you? Golf X-ray. Flight level was going to be 350. Our ETA for the crack. What time is it now? Let's put in 2315 Zulu. Mach was going to be 0.85. I mightn't like the point, so it could be just 850. It did that. And free text, we're going to put in TMI space 188. Boom. Now see all this? That's our clearance. You send it. Boom. Won't send it because there's no one online, but you get the idea, right? You get the idea. That's your oceanic clearances. Maybe that's too early. Go 22. But that's where you'd send it, right? You get the idea, lads, yeah? Yeah, it should. If ATC is on, just be aware they'll probably not ask you to position report. Yeah, probably not. Yeah. Maybe you need Hoppy set up for all that? Maybe. Let me see. How do we do this now? Ah, balls. Yeah, you do. Where is this now? Poppy A cars. Real software, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you probably do. I probably need to install that, right? So if we were going to put in, right, forget all that for the minute. Come back down here to our FMC if we're putting in our flight, right? So position, Echo India Delta Whiskey. Yes. We'll grab this from the GPS. Yes. Route page, we're going to request the route. Wait now, are you not talking to VATSIM? You are. I did generate that flight, didn't I? Yeah, I've generated the flight. So why aren't you saying request the route? Why is... Where is this now? Any idea what that's not working now? That's most unusual. Is it because the nav data's out? Pilot ID rather than username? Oh, well, it's looking for username. Tablet preferences are updated. Hoppy ID is invalid. We know that. Simbrief alias, that's your name, isn't it? Regenerate the flight? That's weird. We'll try it again. Route distance endpoint, yes. Few suggested route. Look how much it changed now, look, right? Jesus. Right, so generating the route. Your ETOPS isn't working. Naturally, because our whole route has changed, right? We get the idea. Put pilot ID in instead of your name. Rajao. Nope. In the plane. Company route? No. Why is that now? Imported from the EFB first. Ah. Simbrief error. Let's try that. Huzzah! Huzzah! Right, she's in. Lovely. Set fuel. Set payload. Select route. Okay. Route requesting. Lovely hurdling. Next page. Bing, bong. Request send. We'll get the information here now. Load. All terribly exciting. Loaded. Wind update. Forecast. Lovely. Lovely. And lovely. So, next page. Sonot. That looks good. Activate. So here's one for you, right? So let's say, for example, this will come up on the old screen here, right? Let me see. Go to plan. Right. Gurok. So what we can do, right? If we wanted to, if we were to say, right, our entry point now is going to be probably Sonot, is it? Yeah, so Sonot. This is our entry point. So if we click on Sonot, and we go to route, Hang on out. Legs. Sonot. Sonot. Position reference. That's all grand. If we go to, is it? It's not a fix. That'll just give me a fix where it is. How do we do this now again? So if we say Sonot, we can do a step at Sonot, but I don't want to do a step. Do I just put in the time? Let's say 2:1:30 Zulu. No. We'll post about it in Discord. Actually, Defo as Rambog wanted it. What's this now? Will be Discord-based session Friday before our stream. Yeah. Put in origin, destination, and request. Yeah, no, she's doing this. I just want to see how do I do, like, it's not a step. Route 2 legs, menu. It's FMC. It's Sonot I want to go to. Valid entry. I'm trying to get the, is it VNav? No. Leg, route. Sonot, route. Request route, save route. Next. It's in here, I do it. So, Sonot. So if I go to here, no. If I go to here, no. Performance. Right, I need to do my homework on this. Basically what I'm trying to do, I can put in certain times through my FMC, right? So it's going to show me what I need to do at a certain waypoint. Oh wait, this is a here look. So hang on, we'll do that again. Sonot, fix. And if we put in the predicted time of 21:30 Zulu, for instance, if we now have a look on the plan, back one, and we look at waypoint, legs, Surox. I don't look at Surox. I want a staff. So if we look at this guy here, it should give me, oh no, sorry, it's Sonot. Need it. Now go back one, Murph. Surox and Sonot. Invalid. Kessex. And then Sonot. That should be giving me a time, so I can appear a time on that as it comes in. The Hobby website has a handy web version for planes that don't have CPDLC. Yeah, we'll check it out. Epic Phil, good to see it. Right, so it's going to be aircraft specific, but I'll go through this again. I have to do my homework on some of this. But basically, we can program an absolute barrel load of stuff into the FMC for us. Not only looking at where all our waypoints need to be, or our altitudes where they need to be, right? Because we can put all those in. We can say, right, at Sonot, we can put in more information here. So we can say Sonot, the bearing is going to be, we can put in altitudes for this as well, predicted ETA or altitude. So we could, for instance, right, we could put in F350, or would it be just 350? It doesn't know it's the time. 35,000. There you go. Flight level 350. So if we could then go at the legs page, that's where we can start horsing all that in. Like, it's pretty cool what we can do with that, because we can build step climbs into it. But I'll do some homework on the old FMC. Naughty, what are you... Well, actually, here's the question, lads. What are you all flying? What are you all flying? Now, there's another important thing I need to add to this before we go, lads. If there is ATC coverage, and this is important, if there is ATC coverage, as soon as you enter the oceanic track... As soon as you enter the oceanic track, right? In this case, it's going to be Sonot. About 10 minutes afterwards, you change your squawk code. They might tell you to change your squawk code, but you change your squawk code to 2000. Sai is taking the A350, Dougal A350, Javahu 350, Roy is taking the 787, or yeah. Citation. Simbrief says C700 won't do it. Few people have said, so I might just do that. Yeah. Martin's taking the 777. Simbrief says the C750 won't do it either, and I'm raging. You know, not either a 350. That's easy in the H160, right? DC6, Jesus shuts. So you could take the C750, but it did say it couldn't make the range because I checked it, you know. But anyway, your squawk code will change at the entry, and then you'll be on 2000. They'll give you a new squawk code on the far side. The whole point of that is so you don't have conflicting squawk codes. Makes sense? Makes sense, right? It's quite the flight. This, it's quite the flight. Like our total mileage is 3,500. 3,500 nautical miles. So it's a good one, right? It's a good one. What else do I want to do? The high frequency stuff, I'm happy enough with that. 10 minutes after your entry point, set your squawk to 2000. It prevents transponder conflicts between the FIRs. All right. I think that's kind of it. Anything beyond what I've just gone through now, lads, it's going to be aircraft specific. Okay. Yes, of course, you don't need to have you don't need to fly in VATSIM if you don't want it. Just come fly. Just come fly with us, lads. Just come fly with us, right? Like as I said, you don't need to have VATSIM, right? Jesus, it's now night time when we started. Hello, Flo. Like I think the point I'm after here is we'll give it a bash and see how you get on with it. That's all we can do, lads. That's all we can do, right? What's the performance running? 50 frames. I think what's important is give it a shot, right? Your lateral offsets, you do that from within the FMC itself. I think you have to be flying, right? So if we were to go to the route page, Surox, yeah, I can't really get into it. Performance. I need to have the rest of my aircraft set up to show you. Right. There's your position reports. So it'll do your position reports, no problem. Right. Check the progress page. That's where we can see the ETAs. That's where all them will come in with your ETAs. But you need to be flying. Know what I mean? Going to fill up the fridge with beverages and snacks for the day. Yeah, it's going to be a long day, but it's going to be a fun day. And there'll be plenty more tutorial stuff as we're flying. Don't worry. We're going to have not an awful lot of time when we leave Dublin because we're going to be hitting up Shanwick fairly quickly. But all the way during the flight, we'll be helping each other out. You know what I mean? Literally the worst thing that can happen is you fail, and if you fail you learn, and if you learn you progress. 100%. Kieran Nile is here, good to see you. So don't be worrying too much. Don't be worrying too much. The flight is Dublin to Detroit, and if you don't use VATSIM, you don't need to use VATSIM. If you want to use an aircraft of your choosing, use the aircraft of your choosing. As I said, I'm 90% sure, 99% sure I'm going to be taking the 777. I might take the Citation. I might. But I know if I look at this flight in SimBrief, it's given out to me. Where are you now? If I change my aircraft here, edit the flight, and if I go to Citation 10, she's going to give out to me. Fuel planning. Let's just see. But I don't think I like it. The Boeing 307 doesn't have the legs without stops. 307 will do it. Colonel 4, good to see you, buddy. Yeah, flight exceeds the aircraft range. When in theory it actually doesn't. But even though the range is 3,203, I think it's because of the wind. We have a headwind of 36 knots along the way. I think that's where it's not liking it. You know what I mean? So, flight exceeds aircraft range. Still do it. You know. Just top up a bit of fuel an hour into the flight. Oh, you can have no passengers in there, and absolutely, like, if we can change all the fuel here, maximum fuel. Yeah, technically, on paper, the citation, on paper, it can do it, right? On paper, it can do it, but there's a lot of factors in there, yeah? Delivery flight, yeah. I know the citation, sure, Max flew over, sure, you know what I mean? Plus, we can add in additional waypoints. If we were going to fly this, our block time was going to take us 7 hours 39 minutes, right? In the citation, 7:39 in the air. And we'll have a look at it here, sure. 7:45 is the scheduled block time. If we go to 777, 300. They're so very close. I think like just 5 minutes. 7:45, same time. If you aren't flying a NAT track with a NAT, it's shorter. Yeah, it will be. Could be. PMDG 738 BBJ will do it, yeah. Yeah, impossible face, 100%, man. 787, also a Speedbird. Why fly to Detroit when we got a hub in Pittsburgh? It's a repositioning flight for the VATSIM stuff, Viper. Because that's just where the next flights are all scheduled from. We could have flown to Boston or New York, but it just meant that our first flight would have been hours. You know what I mean? So looking at them as you speak. Nice. Anyway, we'll go through all of this again on Sunday. Hopefully you've learned enough tonight to know that there is a to-do, right? But the rest of this is going to be aircraft specific. It's going to be aircraft specific, lads. All right? There are the 3 most important things you need to remember. Someone tell me what those 3 things are. Of all the stuff you've learned tonight, the most important 3 things you need to stick to with your flight. Most important. Your route, your MAC number, and your flight level. Or crisps, beer, and no brakes, right? And remember, you need clearance to enter the zone. You don't need clearance to exit the zone. Okay? What's your arrival like? How again? Kilo Delta Tango Whiskey? Headwind A330 might work. Yeah, that'll work. Yeah. And enjoy it. Lads, it's going to be fun. It's a challenge. You know, we're flying in VATSIM. Fingers crossed we get a bit of coverage here along the way. That's what I'm hoping for, right? I want to give a massive shout out to our good friend Jeppison, who's helped us out here tonight. The man is a legend. An absolute legend. Cheers, Gibbo. Yeah, where's this now? Yeah, the Headwind A330. You'd be very bored in it. There's not much in the aircraft to kind of keep you on your toes. 777 is good because there's a lot of systems you can maintain. The 350 is good. The C750, and you're going to see what you want to do, you know. Well, bro, good to see you, buddy. Can I repeat it once again? Of course. We'll start the whole shebang. Right? Especially for across the pond, you can't plan step climbs. Yeah. If I was to use X-Plane, the lineage would do it. 777 would definitely do it. 767, 757. X-Plane has a lot of options. You know, and I was thinking of doing X-Plane because 90% of the entire journey is across the pond. But I'm going to stick with Flight Sim. Let's see how it goes, right? And I'm going to go with Flight Sim 2020 because it's an airliner and the LOD is better, right? Iceman says, how long before flight must we set up with sim brief and all that? About 20 minutes. You know? Very little. I'm actually surprised. AI, right? I'm very surprised because, like, when you ask AI things, AI wrote up this lesson for me. And, like, you have to go back and, you know, this is like a lesson of the flight. And it's based on the information that you feed it. But, like, I can't give you guys this sort of information, so you're going to tell me to shag off, Murph. You know what I mean? So, when you're kind of, like, when you're asking AI to give you kind of like a framework, you have to be so careful with it because it just goes off in a friggin' tangent. It's like, what? That doesn't make sense at all. So like, it has to go based on real information. So like, the only thing you can really do is just feed it loads, you know? It's all right, Gibbo. It's a great doc. There's a lot of information in our document. There's a barrel load of stuff. A lot of this, as I say, lads, this document, you know, it's there for reference. You don't need to read it, you know, line by line verbatim. It's reference. Balls, what do we need to plan here? What we cover tonight, the 6 stages, have a read over it during the week. Just read over it, glance over it so you're becoming more familiar with it. On Sunday, right, Sunday morning, we're saying 1200 Zulu. That's 1 o'clock local time. I'll probably be online an hour beforehand, and we'll go ahead and get ourselves up and running. We'll go through the flight planning. We'll check out the ATC coverage, right? And we'll plan our flight for this. And lads, if you can do this flight, there's absolutely no reason why you know we won't see it on the next VATSIM across the pond. No reason, because you're doing the whole thing and you're going to be far more prepared than half the lads who do that anyway. I'm just telling you, right? Don't do 24, only 2020. It depends. You can do it on 24. I'm going to try it on 20. Hopefully we don't get a friggin' CTD. It can happen though, right? And if it does, nothing we can do, right? Same thing happens across the pond. We'll attempt to load back in mid-air if we can. Let's see what happens. It's a long out flight. Expect about 7.5 hours airborne, all going well. Dougal only has 24 for now. Yeah. Lads, you need to prepare yourselves. If you do get a CTD, it's not the end of the world, right? We can load back in roughly, get your aircraft reconfigured roughly. We'll have enough time in the cruise to figure it all out. So see what happens, right? See what happens. Like, I can't wait until we have shared cockpit in this. Proper shared cockpit. You know what I mean? Wouldn't that be amazing? But yeah. So all the information is there. I thank you so much for, you know, putting up with it. Right? It's there's quite a bit to kind of cover and whatever else, but hopefully you found this useful. A shout out again to Jeppison for jumping on and explaining the ETOPS stuff. Naughty Gnome will be on Friday. He'll do a follow up to this, and he might lean on the specifics for the FMC. That'll be some stage on Friday. Keep your eyes peeled to our Discord. All right, and then on Sunday we're going to fly this route. I mean, that's just going to happen. And as I said, if you're new to all of this and you just want to give it a shot, we're going to help each other out. We're definitely going to help each other out. Right, that's the story now. I'm away to bed. What am I doing now tomorrow? Oh yeah, we're trucking tomorrow night. And we'll be on at some stage tomorrow, I'm sure. If I'm not on tomorrow, we're definitely back on tomorrow night. So we'll see how we get on, right? So thank you all so very much indeed. Hope you found it useful, and we'll see you tomorrow at some stage. Definitely 1900 Zulu. We'll probably get a cheeky stream in during the day as well. So as always, lads, thank you all so very much indeed, and we'll catch you later. Good luck to you. It's usually the best. It's the best way to do things. You know what I mean? Usually the best way to do things is, no matter what sort of a day you're having, just come in and just have a bit of a slag with me, you know? Oh, me knee! Oh, hang on, I'm after bashing me knee. Do you know? Don't hit me with a frying pan! Oh, jeez! This is hairs! You just hit me with a frying pan!
Did you make a noise?
Of course I made a noise! You hit me with a frying pan in my head! Why would you hit me with a frying pan? Don't hit me again! Ah! Yes, it makes a noise! You're hitting me with a frying pan! Annalisa, did you put her up to that? Jesus, me head! Oh, who hit someone? I mean, come on! Who hit someone with a frying pan, for God's sake? Oh! Very hollow sounding. What? What are you talking about, hollow sounding? Were you going to